самое, что же это самое Identity Security и откуда оно взялось? Ну, в общем-то, какие предпосылки вообще возникли для появления этой темы на горизонте? Ну, во-первых, это цифровая трансформация бизнеса. Мы еще до карантина все начали активно уходить в облака. В общем-то, коронавирус значительно ускорил этот процесс. Вот, особенность облачных инфраструктур в том, что там достаточно сложная система прав, привилегий, которые нарезаны на объектном уровне. Это все, в общем, достаточно сложно. Этим сложно управлять, этим легко пользоваться атакующим. Вот, соответственно, у нас изменилась сама порода, сама как бы натура, природа привилегий. У нас, в общем-то, при определенных обстоятельствах любой пользователь может обладать определенными привилегиями, которыми может воспользоваться атакующий. К сожалению, это касается не только облачных сред, но и там традиционных наземных on-prem, которые, как нам кажется, мы все хорошо знаем. На самом деле это не так, и, в общем-то, достаточно простой такой тест. Вот можно спросить любого администратора, допустим, вот показать ему на Windows сервер и спросить, сколько у него администраторов. И человек там полезет в оснастку юзера, посмотрит, сколько там человек, и ответит. На самом деле это не так, потому что в силу, так сказать, наследования прав, членства в группах и механизмов делегирования у каждого объекта в инфраструктуре может быть на самом деле сотни субъектов с административным доступом. Вот, например, если кто-то игрался с Bloodhound, то он, наверное, узнает вот такую картинку. То есть ситуация в он-преме не лучше. И это все приводит к тому, что как бы весь мир, вся IT-индустрия постепенно переходит к подходу Zero Trust, что означает, что мы не можем доверять ничему по умолчанию. Мы должны верифицировать каждую сущность, то есть каждую identity. Мы обязаны валидировать каждый девайс, и мы обязаны по результатам вот этой идентификации и валидации предоставлять, скажем так, привилегии, достаточные для выполнения производственной задачи, но не более того. То есть жестко следовать принципу Least Access. Соответственно, вот это и значит подход Zero Trust. Соответственно, мы логично переходим к построению периметра, который основан не на традиционных там сетевых технологиях, на фильтрации L3, L4, а к периметру, который построен на базе сущностей, identities, то есть identity-based периметр. И здесь у нас, так сказать, много есть интересных захватывающих задач, челленджей, одна из которых состоит в том, что вот таких вот сущностей или identities в любой инфраструктуре их очень много, и у них разная природа. То есть это не только учетные записи людей, это и учетные записи систем, машин, сервисов, скриптов, роботов, учетные записи, с которыми работают контейнеры, какие-то лямбда-функции и так далее. В общем-то, здесь список практически неограниченный. Все, что работает в нас в системах, оно использует какие-то права, какие-то привилегии, какие-то учетные записи. Это все может быть проэксплуатировано злоумышленником. Соответственно, стоит задача построить вот такой Zero Trust, надежно идентифицировать, верифицировать каждую учетную запись, независимо от ее природы. И вот именно это позволяет делать CyberArk. Вот благодаря тому, что CyberArk предлагает своим заказчикам, в общем-то, целостную платформу обеспечения безопасности. Потому что вот традиционно у нас CyberArk всегда ассоциировался с PAM. Это логично, потому что CyberArk это лидер PAM рынка уже на протяжении 20 лет. Но на самом деле CyberArk это целостная платформа, которая позволяет обеспечить безопасность любых типов учетных записей. Неважно, это сотрудники, привилегированные, непривилегированные, удаленные, вендоры, приложения, роботы, контейнеры, что угодно. И мы это позволяем делать в любых средах, в облачных, наземных, гибридных, то есть в любых условиях. Вот это важно, это, в общем-то, Это на самом деле самое важное, что нужно знать о CyberArk. Вот, поэтому я с удовольствием передам слово моим коллегам, вот, нашим уважаемым, в общем-то, вендорам CyberArk, для того, чтобы они продолжили и рассказали нам более подробно о некоторых, скажем так, вещах из этой схемы, которую вы видите сейчас на моем экране. Все, коллеги, спасибо.
Алексей, спасибо огромное. Энди, we can start. Алексей, ты можешь остановить свой... Попробуй вверху панель, остановить экран. Окей. Andy, you here? Yes, Andy here. Пока техническая заминка идет, Энди подключается, шарит свой экран. Энди здесь. Энди, hello.
All right, I guess it's our turn now.
Oh, okay. It's great.
Len, are you ready to? All right,
Yeah.
Let's get started. Can you all hear me?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you guys very much for allowing Andy and myself to come out and spend some time with you guys. We're going to be doing today is part of the CyberArk Attack and Defend series. This is a real-world attack simulation designed to help security professionals increase their knowledge and ability through real-world attacks. Today, we're going to be talking about risk factors around identity, and hopefully by the completion of this presentation, we hope to provide a better understanding of some of the threats that you guys might actually be facing out there in the real world.
Now, before we go any further, we need to set some things straight. The things that we will be showing you today can and will land you in jail if used inappropriately. The things that we're doing here today are for educational uses only. Simply put, we here absolutely love hacking. Hacking is not a crime. It's how and what you hack that determines whether or not it is truly a crime. So with that said, warnings aside, let's get started. Len, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I would be very happy to. My name is Len No. I'm part of the CyberArk Global Solutions engineering team and one of CyberArk's white hat hackers. I am a global security speaker and have been with CyberArk for just coming up on 7 years. I've been an IT professional for over 20 years in roles ranging from programmer to systems architect. I've been breaking into computers since the Commodore 64 days and spent a large amount of my time in my youth as a black or a gray hat hacker. I'm professionally trained, but come by a lot of my knowledge through practical application. I'm really active on social media, and I invite all of the attendees to feel free to reach out over LinkedIn, check out my GitHub repos and my YouTube channel for additional security content. So my partner here, take it away, Andy.
Yes, thanks, Len. My name is Andy Thompson, and I'm part of the Research Labs division here at CyberArk. This is the team within the company that does ongoing research into offensive technology and information security trends. Before I joined CyberArk about 5 years ago, I spent my time in the trenches as a senior systems administrator and security architect. I've worked in IT and security with large hospitals, movie theater chains, bars, restaurants, other service industries, as well as global retail organizations. I'm SSCP and CISSP certified by ISC Squared, and I'm a GIAC certified penetration tester. I'm also a very active member of the Dallas, Texas hacking scene, where I'm known as the resident travel hacker. My wife, my 2 daughters, and my 2 dogs, we love to travel all over the world on a shoestring budget, prior to COVID, of course. So now we're going to get this exercise started and demonstrate some real world hacking exercises. We're going to start first by looking at locally stored cloud credentials. Now, does anybody remember CodeSpaces? Probably not. CodeSpaces was a company that offered developers source code repositories and project management services using Git, Subversion, and among others. This was one of GitHub's biggest competitors, but it's all over now. Essentially, the company was murdered by an attacker. Now, CodeSpaces was mostly built on AWS using storage and server instances to provide its services. Those instances weren't hacked, nor was CodeSpaces database compromised or stolen. According to the messages on CodeSpaces website, somebody was able to break into CodeSpaces website and gain access to their AWS control panel. Now, when they demanded money for exchange for releasing back to CodeSpaces, CodeSpaces chose not to comply, and as a result, they finally lost. They got access to their control panel after only they lost their several EBS snapshots, S3 buckets, all AMIs, and some EBS machine instances. Essentially, this just destroyed CodeSpaces overnight. This is a direct comparison is to someone breaking into an office building at night, demanding ransom, and then throwing grenades into the data center if the demands weren't met. The only difference here is that it's an awful lot easier to penetrate a cloud-based platform than it is to physically breach a corporate data center. Now, I'm sure this scenario never occurred to the poor souls at CodeSpaces. More likely, they kept up with their security measures. They were SOX and PCI compliant. And they probably relied on Amazon to do the majority of their infrastructure work, not unlike thousands of other companies. Yet the attack that brought CodeSpaces down to their knees was simple as gaining access to their AWS control panel. All in all, this company went from a viable GitHub competitor to completely out of business in 12 hours. So let's pass this off to Lynn to show how an attacker might be able to access a cloud's credentials.
Okay, we're going to start by just taking a quick look around the CLI tools available. The CLI is a visual, human-readable doorway to interact with the cloud infrastructure. It's relatively human-readable in comparison to APIs, which is really a highly flexible instrument for building tools. Where APIs make it possible to build and connect applications in a machine-to-machine sense, a CLI is arguably better for ad hoc tasks or quick exploratory operations, since it's much easier to read and digest. For interacting with virtual machines, spinning up instances, running applications in the cloud, or arbitrating a virtual data center, the CLI is the cloud admin's favorite method to initiate pretty much all types of cloud transfers. Every cloud platform out there has made available their own version of these CLI tools with a lot of commands specific to each platform. So here's some things that you may not know. By default, the cloud credentials inserted into the cloud shells when you log into them are stored in clear text on your endpoints. You can see here that the AWS and Azure stores their credentials in the standard paths available to anybody. GCP stores their access tokens in an unsecured manner just the same way. This includes the keys to any environment that has been accessed by that digital workspace. What I mean by that is if you have a dev and a prod environment and you've accessed both of them from the same digital workspace, there will be entries for both your dev and your prod and the keys for both. The file locations for AWS, Azure, and GCP are not only documented, they are a known target for attackers. If an attacker knows CLI tools are installed, we know exactly where to go and look and find those credentials. Let me summarize. This means that anyone that gets access to a cloud user's digital workspace can navigate to a directory structure on the hard drive, and without even needing to crack a hash or perform any other crazy hacker, kung fu, we can open that file and copy the credentials with no additional protections provided by the system.
You want to show them how it's done, Lynn?
Yeah, let's take a look at a video here and I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So for the purposes of these video, we're going to assume initial breach. So I'm in the machine. Once I'm in, I'm going to look around and I'm do a DIR, and you'll see I'm on the desktop and I see a PuTTY link. So right away, I also see some things that say AWS and Azure.
Sorry, the video paused.
Thank you. So that tells me that there's probably going to be some sessions saved. Looking in known locations within the registry, I see that there's entries for both AWS as well as GCP. If I dig a little bit deeper, now I can start looking around, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to look in the known location where those files are stored. And that's going to be in your .aws directory. So if we go ahead and we cat the .aws config, this is going to give us the region. If I do a cat AWS credentials, let's take a look at that. There's my AWS access key. There's my AWS secret key. Nothing but clear text. So let's use this information that we just got. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to enumerate all the EC2 instances that this particular account has. As you can see from the top of the screen, I've already done an AWS configure and used that information that I just got by looking in your files. And if we go down just a couple more, we're going to see that I have an EC2 instance that's going to be running in US East. And there it is. So let's dig back into that registry again. We know that PuTTY had some saved sessions. A lot of people, not me, not you guys, you're way too smart for that. But here's the host name. You're not going to save passwords and things on your system, are you? Oh, wait a minute. There's the username is Ubuntu. And now if I take a look, since this is PuTTY, it's going to be using a PPK file, but I see that it's stored in the documents. I know a lot of people who will keep the original PEM file just in case there's a problem with that PPK. And look at that, A&D AWS Cloud PEM file. So all I have to do now is download that from your system, and I have every piece of information I need to be able to log into that AWS instance. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to chmod the PEM file. We're just going to do the same SSH connection, except we're going to export the display back to the local system. And I'm just feeling like I should do some kind of nastiness. So I'm thinking, how about some ransomware, Andy?
No, that sounds good.
All right. So, oh, look at that. The user that was in there had sudo rights. So now I've got root. I'm going to reach out to my web server, download my payload, unzip that. We're going to use Gother. Really nice little ransomware. From here, we go ahead, we CD into Gother. I've already saved the virtual environment for Python. And at this point, all we have to do is execute. And me as the bad guy, I own all of your documents at this point. So let me show you what it looks like from the victim's perspective. So as we can see, we've got an Ubuntu box here. We've got documents. We have some photographs down in the pictures directory. So let's bring in that ransomware. So you can see both the cause and effect. And just like that, all of the files with the extensions that I've configured within that ransomware would actually be locked down with their own individual keys. And the only way you would be able to get them back is hopefully either you have backups or you're going to have to try and pay me and hope that I'm just going to be honorable and give you your data back.
Well, that's one nasty, nasty attack demonstrating how basically credential residue left in these hard-coded configuration files were able to expose a cloud instance and ultimately expose it to ransomware. Let's move forward with our next example. This is another ransomware example. In this circumstance, we're going to be using what's called a wireless human interface device, or a WHID cactus. I actually have one rolling around here on my desk somewhere, but I digress. What we're going to do is we're going to show you how inserting this device into your machine can expose yourself to risk and ultimately ransomware. So we're going to do another video. Len, why don't you walk them through this one as well?
Sure thing. In this one, we're using the RRAS ransomware. Here's the device. We're going to plug it into the laptop. This works essentially along the same principles as any keystroke injection. The only difference is this allows for a wireless access point, so I can choose when to deploy my payload. So from my other device, I actually just deployed a script that once again is going to go ahead, and this time we're going to use PowerShell. It's going to download my payload file. Then we're going to unzip it. We're going to navigate into it and execute the payload. That quick. And at that point, it's over. Your files are again encrypted. If we go back over to the attacker system, you'll see that it's going to return basic information along with the decryption key if they were to actually decide to pay that ransom. That fast. Andy,
Very cool. And
all
right.
Why don't you take a look at what's next for us?
All right, so the next one we have is a little different. It's an attack that we call a man-in-the-middle attack. We're going to be using a series of PowerShell functions called Inve to basically sit in between two network requests and intercept one and poison the response. And what we're going to be doing is listening for passwords. And as soon as somebody puts in a bad request via DNS, we'll intercept that and then provide them a response, challenging them what their username and password is. All of this is done automatically. So let me show you what this looks like. What we're doing is we're importing within PowerShell our Inve module. We're invoking it with our console out so we can see what's going on the screen. So now, literally, all we're doing is just waiting. We're waiting for somebody to make a mistake, and boom, all of a sudden, the username, the domain, the NTLM v2 hash, it's all pushed automatically. So what attackers are essentially going to do here is once they get their hooks into the network, they're going to sit there and wait. This is the lying in wait aspect here, the dwell time. What you saw right there was they took that NTLM hash and put it in through a password cracker called John the Ripper. And once it brute forces the password, you'll find that the password is provided in that cracked password hashes text file. Password is CyberArk1. So now that we've been able to intercept a communication, we're able to crack the hash, we're able to use Mike's password to log on to a system. So we're going ahead and logging on to this system via remote desktop protocol. And now we're going in and we're going to create a backdoor account. Using Active Directory users and computers, we're going to go ahead and clone the domain administrator account. So go ahead and click copy, creating our hacker 213 account, I believe. There we go.
That's me.
And now we have successfully created a administrator account. And let's just make sure once we've set our password. Member of administrators. Very good. Now that we've done our nefarious acts, it's now time to clear our tracks. Going into the security logs, we're going to clear all the logs and make sure that nobody saw what we did. So again, that's just a quick and easy demonstration of how easy it is to, once dwelling within a network, it is to harvest credentials and perform reconnaissance. Pretty cool, right?
All right, Andy, I'm going to tee you up. I know this is one of your favorite attacks in history.
Yes, this is my pleasure. This is my pleasure. Thank you. This one was in October of 2016. All right. Imagine this. It is a hot, steamy night in Manila, Philippines. A gentleman walks up to a crowded casino. It's packed full of people. This person walks to the very back of the cashier and makes a withdrawal request. It's a rather large number. It's open. It's pretty shocking how big of an amount this is. But at the same time, this casino does transactions like this all the time. So this person packs up their bag of money and promptly disappears into the middle of the night. Roughly about 3,000 miles away, unbeknownst to anyone else, the Central Bank of Bangladesh has just been robbed. This was the largest bank heist in the history of the world, capitalizing on the weaknesses of the security of the Central Bank of Bangladesh, including possible insider threat. The bank has been victim of the largest bank heist ever. Essentially, there was an attempt to steal almost $1 billion in money from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York by crafting fraudulent transactions. What they essentially did was they were able to initially penetrate the network, elevate their access to domain admin privileges, and then create what's called a golden ticket. The golden ticket is basically game over. Once that golden ticket is cut, the integrity of the domain is gone. It's destroyed. At this point, anyone with that golden ticket can impersonate anybody for unlimited periods of time. And so what they did was essentially crafted a fraudulent bank transaction. Several of them, I think 36 of them, of which the majority of them were caught, but several did go through. And we're going to show you just how easy it was to create this golden ticket. So what we're going to do now is demonstrate the payload detonation. It could be simple as an email address, a server-side vulnerability. Like Len said, it's kind of inconsequential. But what you can see here is that our initial agent has connected to our command and control server. What we're going to do now is rename it so it's a little bit more easy to work with. And what we're going to do now is we're going to elevate our privilege. We're a local admin on this machine, but we haven't bypassed the UAC yet. So we're going to run a function, I believe it's called bypass UAC, that will then allow us to do more elevated functions. So let's go ahead and try that out now. All right. So a lot of this functionality is built into the command and control platform called PowerShell Empire. All we have to do is specify certain functions, built-in scripts, and it will actually execute those on our behalf. So we're going to be using the module privsec bypass UAC. We execute it, and at this point, we should have a new green line that will show up on the screen. This will mean that a new connection has occurred. Yes, that's great. So now we have bypassed the UAC, the administrative permissions, and now we can perform more reconnaissance. So going back into our agent, we're going to perform a few scans, if you may. The first thing that we want to do is find out some situational awareness. We're going to scan the network and look for particular members of a group, Active Directory group. We're looking for, I believe, domain admins. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Specify the domain admins group, and this is a small network. There's only 2 domain admins. There's the built-in domain admin, and there's the domain admin Neo. I happen to be a big fan of the movie Matrix, so Neo is our big domain administrator. The next thing that we're going to do is get a list of the computers within the network. By running the reconnaissance command get computer, we see these are all the objects within our domain. There's only a few, but the ones that we're interested in is file server and Swift. File servers typically have differing NTSF permissions than standard machines, and our Swift machine is completely locked down. We can't get to it. So what we're going to do now is find the local admins of a particular computer. So remember how I said file servers tend to have different NTFS permissions? We're going to find out who all are local admins on that server. In this circumstance, Tank, the user Tank, who is the person we've already compromised, happens to be a local admin of that file server. So this allows us an opportunity to pivot. What we're going to do is laterally move from the endpoint that we've initially compromised and laterally move over onto this file server, okay? So what we're going to do now is use some lateral movement functions called Invoke Wmi. We're using Windows built-in WMI protocol to communicate to this second machine. We specify that we want to jump over to file server. We click execute. And again, look at that. That green line just showed up on the screen. That means that we were able to have a positive, successful connection. Now that we've been able to successfully laterally move, we're going to do a little bit of, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to do some credential harvesting. So we're going to rename that file server to file server, so it's a little bit easier to work with. Let's get in here. Now, if you'll see here, there's nothing in our credentials database at the moment. We're going to load Mimikatz into memory, bypassing any sort of signature-based antivirus. And now we can have all the passwords, all the credentials, all the hashes. They're now stored in our credential database. So one of the ones that we're going to be looking at is, believe that we now have Neo's password. But now that we've got a domain admin's password, it's time to permanently own the domain. All right, let me show you. So we're going to run the creds command again. Let's see here. Oh, no, now we're passing the hash. That's right. Now that we're going to become Neo. We are going to take the credential of that domain admin, steal the token, and basically spawn a process that's running as Neo, but we're the ones in control of it. So we can basically become the domain admin just by passing the hash of the domain administrator. Once that we have done that, we're going to run what's called a DC sync command. This is really what's going to allow us to permanently own the network. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run one more module where we're going to run that DC sync, where we're impersonating a domain controller, saying, hey, I'm a new domain controller. I need your Kerberos ticket granting service hash in order to stand up. And that's what we're looking for, KRBTGT. That's the Kerberos ticket granting service. Once we've successfully DC synced, you get the digest. And take a look, we run our creds command again. Not only do we have Neo and Tank, but that KRBTGT. This allows us to run a new module called Golden Ticket. And so with Golden Ticket, we have all the information now to create anything we want. We're going to create a fake username that doesn't even exist with a password age of 99 years. And we were able to use Agent Smith as our ticket name. So Agent Smith at matrix.local has been created. That allows us to really execute our end game. Remember how the attackers in the Central Bank of Bangladesh were able to fraudulently create SWIFT transactions? Well, on screen here, you can see an actual SWIFT transaction format, except that I've transferred about $50,000 to the Shadow Systems hacker organization. So what we're doing is we're jumping back into that file server, jumping into the Swift box, which we previously couldn't get into. And you can see these pending batch jobs. Well, we just simply update that batch queue with our additional fraudulent transaction and wait for the batch job to process as it normally would, transferring that money directly into our bank account. So take a look. We're on the Swift server now. We're going to go take a look at the Swift jobs and let's see if number 100 is in the list. There's 1 through 99, and there it is. There's 100. That means $50,000 has been siphoned out of the central bank. That really, folks, is the attack from beginning to end, for how the bank was compromised to how they were able to execute their end game. Pretty cool, Len. How good are we on time? Do we have more time to go through some more examples? Let's keep going until they say no. Okay, Len?
Yep. All right.
One more would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
If we only got time for one more, which one you want to do?
Let's see. We've got the large financial institution.
Or SolarWinds.
Let's do SolarWinds.
All right. SolarWinds is the one that everybody's heard about, especially in recent days. So we're going to actually break down a supply chain attack for you guys. Andy, why don't you go ahead and take the case study?
Yeah, basically, I'll go through here. On December 8th, FireEye was reported that their network had been breached and that several of their red team tools had leaked. After a few days of investigation, it was actually revealed that several other organizations had been breached as well. And the initial foothold to each of those organizations was based on a Trojanized update of one of SolarWinds' products, Orion. Based on the tools and techniques, we believe this to be an APT player. They used this Trojanized update to infiltrate multiple US government departments and other high-profile organizations across the world as part of a widespread espionage campaign, or so we believe. The US cybersecurity and intelligence security agencies structured the attack into 3 stages, and essentially we did the same here. The first stage is stage 1, where the supply chain on SolarWinds and the Orion code base. Stage 2 focused on the initial activities of the backdoor code and how it zeroed in on vulnerable organizations. And in stage 3, the attackers, once within the network, elevated their privileges in order to fulfill the espionage campaign. So this is kind of what it looks like, Len. I'm going to let you walk us through it here.
All right. We're using a tool called Evil Grade. This is basically going to be able to spoof any type of upgrade for up to 19 different types of software. In the upper left-hand screen, we have our Metasploit listener, and in the lower right-hand screen, I'm doing a DNS cache poisoning and an ARP cache poisoning. So as you can see what's going on over here, I've gone ahead and I've selected Notepad++ as the particular software I'm going to try and go after. I'm starting up a web server, and the upgrade that I'm actually going to push was actually created with Metasploit's MSF Venom and is actually a reverse TCP shell. So at this point, all I have to do is wait for either the next time your software is automatically scheduled to look for an update, or you to go in and actually check and see if there's an update. So the minute you see here and you say, yes, I want to update my software, which looks completely on the level as far as what you would expect, let me show you what actually happened on the back end. So if you keep your eye on the left-hand side, you'll see this is where that web server is actually serving up my file, my reverse TCP listener, my payload. So if we watch the upper left-hand corner, you'll see now we actually have a shell. So if I do a sysinfo, I'm actually in your system. I can see right off the bat that it's a Windows 2016 server. And I'm going to use a tool called Get System. This allows me to actually get system level permissions. If I do a local list of where I am, I'm on my desktop, and I'm going to try and get into the documents directory on that remote system. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to upload a tool called SolarFlare. If you're not familiar with SolarFlare, it's an auditing tool for the SolarWinds platform. Shout out to its writer. He helped us out quite a bit on this one. So from here, all I have to actually do is open an interactive shell. That's it. Navigate the directory structure down into and as you can see, I'm in the Notepad++ updater directory. But if I do a directory listing, you'll see I have my SolarFlare exe that I uploaded from my Linux box. At this point, all I got to do is launch PowerShell, run SolarFlare. And to be honest, I forgot to put the greater than sign to actually export it to a text file the first time I recorded that. So that was my fault. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to run it again. SolarFlare exe output to sf.txt. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to run that utility one more time. And now if I do another dir, you'll see I have an sf.txt file. So if I break back into my Metasploit command and control server, I can actually download that sf.txt file, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to delete any traces that I was ever in your system in the hopes of making your digital forensics and incident response a heck of a lot harder. So just like that, I've deleted my payload. I've deleted the file that contains all of your passwords. So now if I go over here, here is basically all of the keys, the certificates, and the passwords for all of your SolarWinds Orion environment.
So let me reiterate, SolarWinds being what it is a repository for all sorts of credentials, network infrastructure, databases, SaaS applications, just standard infrastructure within the data center. All of those data credentials were stored in this database that Len just cracked by uploading and running a program. So that just kind of goes to show that how easy it is for attackers to harvest identities out of these vulnerable applications. That we've got more to go, so if we could go for longer, but for the sake of time, we'll conclude our presentation at this time. If there are any questions, we would love to field your questions.
As long as somebody can translate, my ability to read foreign languages that are not in English is pretty limited.
All right.
Коллеги, я хочу напомнить, если у вас есть вопросы, пожалуйста, пишите в чат вопросы и ответы, и у нас есть синхронный перевод. Если вы хотите слышать на русском языке, пожалуйста, кликните на глобус и выберите язык. И сейчас я рада представить Барташа. Барташ.
I'm with you.
Yeah, thanks. We can start.
Perfect. Thank you very much for introduction. And guys, I would like to thank you twice, at least twice. So first of all, we used to say in CyberArk that Andy and Len can talk about attacks even at night. And guess what? Now it's like 2:40 a.m. in US. So
yeah, 2:42 in the morning.
Great job, guys, and good night. And in the same time, the more we hear from you about the attacks, I know you could talk about it for at least hours or days. The more we hear from you about these attacks, the more we understand how it is important to protect our environments and protect our identities. Maybe before we start, one more point. There were questions on chat. If you can show more, if you can tell more, there is very positive feedback. So guess what? We'll repeat it, because I know you are organizing now Attack and Defense series, this dedicated workshop for attacks and protection solutions and techniques. So everybody is more than welcome to join us. We'll provide you details about the dates and use cases, which will be covered very soon. Great. So thank you very much again, Len. Thank you very much, Andy. And let's go into the blue team now. So to the defense, to the part how to protect your environment, how to protect your data, and first of all, how to protect your identities, because as Alex said, identities were never so important as they are now. My name is Bartek Kryński. I'm Solutions Engineering Team Leader at CyberArk, working with identities and privilege access management for more than 5 years now. With the security, I'm more than 15 years. This is my experience. And just to summarize this introduction, I think for today, one of the most important things to remember is the zero trust approach. If we have some account in the bank, and if we are getting to the office of the bank and we would like to transfer data, we wouldn't like bank to allow us to transfer money in the way like, hi, I'm Bartek, and some bank manager will say, authenticate yourself. I will say, yeah, my password starts with capital A and there is some digit inside. And they will say, okay, you can transfer the money. We wouldn't like such situation to happen. And the same is in our environment. The zero trust enforcement is very important from all of the sites which you see in this slide. So we should verify all of the identities. We should validate the workspace and workforce. We should provide the proper authorizations, watch the behavior of the users, record it and audit it. This is our goal. And this is what CyberArk is doing. CyberArk vision is to provide the unified platform, the unified identity security platform for all of the identities. And today we would like to split the topics. I will start with the workforce topic. So we'll talk about employees, business team, and I will show you how to provide proper security level for these people, but also how to make it more ergonomic for both sides, for these people and also for our operations. And then we'll expand, we will split today's conference into the different topics: IT, operators, administrators. We will go then to the remote vendors. Then we will focus a bit on the endpoint least privilege and how to protect endpoints in general. And we will finish with very important topics, because identity is not for human only. There is a lot of machines, applications, scripts, vulnerability scanners which are there, and we should also protect them to not have situations like mentioned by Andy and Len, SolarWinds, CodeCough, or many other, which use the machine-to-machine communication to get into the environment. So let's focus first on the workforce identity. From the end user perspective, what is very important are at least 4 different slices here. First one is about adaptive MFA, to have MFA, multi-factor authentication everywhere in the environment. But in the same time, somebody could say, yeah, but if we unify this MFA, even now, it's very difficult in the environment to remember all of your passwords which you have. If we are talking about the workforce people, they have a lot of business applications. And if there is the enforcement in the environment, like every 30 days to change passwords, so guess what? Usually they change it for the same one or very similar one in the environment. So we have 1 month like CyberArk 1 password, second month CyberArk 2, so on and so forth. So it's neither secure nor ergonomic. So we would like to provide to these people a kind of the single sign-on to use one identity to access different business applications, but in most secure way possible. Would be great also to optimize processes related to identity management. If somebody is getting to the environment, change the role, or some identity is deleted, somebody is fired from the company, would be great to do all of these tasks related to governance and lifecycle management more automatically. And of course, in today's environments, we have on-prem environments, different infrastructure as a service clouds. So it would be great to unify these directory services and manage finally these identities in the central way. So let's start with the MFA. When I see the region, especially nowadays, we have a lot of talks, especially in Ukraine, with our customers and prospects. And for most of them, I see pretty similar situation that you started thinking about the unification of the authentication, or at least considering to change something. Because in our region, in many cases, it's like, okay, some part of the infrastructure is protected with the MFA, like VPNs, based on some certificates and passwords. Some part is not protected by MFA at all, and there are just passwords used. Somewhere we use some biometric authentication. Would be perfect to enforce one policy for multi-factor authentication everywhere you are. Doesn't matter if you are getting to the workstation, to your VPN concentrator, to your proxy or your application. And it should be based on the risk. So would be great to put this adaptive part in the MFA. Based on the profile which is created for this user, would be great to decide automatically if for this specific session, some additional factor of the authentication is needed, or maybe it's enough if somebody authenticated once, if nothing changed on the endpoint side or nothing changed on the behavior side. Important is also to use modern authentication factor. On one hand, ergonomic, like it could be like QR codes, biometry, push on the mobile device, OTP codes. On the opposite side, would be great if we standard-based to be compliant with EAL and different regulations. So maybe some hardware tokens should be there, and you can combine them together depending on your requirements and depending on the specific situation. So it's about the MFA. Let's go to the SSO, to the single sign-on. Single sign-on is the approach. I would compare it to house. If we have house, there are different rooms inside. So either we can protect every room, every door of the room with different locks. So you can just open the door to house, and if you are getting to the specific room, you need to choose the different key, open doors and get inside. Ergonomy, not so much. It's not so ergonomic, right? Because imagine how many keys we need to have. And if you need to change these keys, yeah, it will take a time. So different approach in the IT security and OT security is to use single sign-on, to use one identity. Let's protect in the most secure way the main doors to your house with different keys, different methods and technologies to protect this entry point. And if you are inside and you want to go to a specific room, doors may be open. Maybe there is one physical safe to which you would like to additionally protect access with PIN or something else, or maybe the biometry like the fingerprint scan, but this is it. And it's working exactly in the same way with our SSO approach. So you will have the portal, the dedicated portal. You log in there like quickly, but securely with the MFA. And then you will have the application catalog available for you. You can choose application. And guess what? It doesn't matter if the application is in the cloud, Like, is it software as a service application like Salesforce, Google Drive, Dropbox, LinkedIn, Facebook, or something else? Or is it some on-prem application? And especially for these on-prem applications, if we are outside, if we are working remotely, we have a lot of complaints that, especially workforce, they need to establish the VPN session first to the environment, and then they can maybe use some applications. So they need to spend time to establish the session with the VPN. Sometimes there are some problems with the network level, etc. So they would like to optimize this process. With the SSO approach, we can do it by using dedicated solution called application gateway and application tunnel. So you can remotely just use the browser, get to the portal, choose your on-prem application, and CyberArk will tunnel the traffic in the secure way to your environment. I will show you that in a second in specific demo. And last but not least is about self-service. We have a lot of requests for optimization that, for example, if I logged my account by mistake in the domain, I need to open ticket in help desk and it takes time. If I need to change password, it's pretty the same. So what we can do, we can consolidate different projects. I have one of examples from Poland. We started the project for one of the companies, the insurance companies, and it looked like very basic project for privilege access management. Our colleagues from Softprom will present it just in a second. But then we figure out they have a lot of different problems there in the environment. Like there's no unification about MFA, there is no SSO at all. They have big problem with self-service portals like that. And we consolidated at least 8 different programs in one project, which was much easier to be managed and progress with it in the proper way. Third point is related to identity lifecycle management. What is it about? If we have new employee, so let's assume Bartek is your new employee. You have some HR application where you create this identity. If you created it, these identity parameters may be automatically provisioned to the different systems like Active Directory. And the account can be created in ID, proper group assignment parameters may be synchronized. Then if this account is in the AD, guess what? The parameters may be provisioned to the different business applications like AWS, Salesforce, or something else in on-prem or in the cloud. So then, for example, in Office 365, new user can be created. Group assignment may be there based on your permissions in the domain. And guess what? The license, the subscription may be automatically activated in this business application. What is more important even, if something is changing, if I moved to another department, if I left company, this deprovisioning process or updates may be also automatic, what is very, very valuable. Okay, so let's present a couple of demos. Let's assume I need to have the secure but ergonomic access to my different business applications. So first, let's protect our access to the endpoint. Many attacks presented by Len and Andy were on endpoints. So we need to protect our endpoints. I will show just MFA now, and then we will go into the deeper endpoint protection. To get to my endpoint, first I type password, but then I can choose some additional factor of the authentication. In example here, I choose the push. So you see on my mobile device on the right side, I got the notification, I approved it. Additionally, Face ID can be enabled as the third factor of the authentication. So I guarantee that my authentication in the operating system level is very, very secure. Now, if I get to the portal, you see that no authentication was needed. We use this transfer of identity between the operating system and the browser, Chrome, Internet Explorer, etc. Of course, you can decide if additional authentication is needed or not. I choose one of my applications like GitHub to get there, and system said, okay, for this application, you need to provide me at least one factor. So in this case, it's something also modern like QR codes. I scan the QR code with one mobile device, mobile application, and now there you go. I'm automatically authenticated in the GitHub with some credentials. There is the support for different apps, more modern by identity provider transfer to the service provider like SAML, OpenID, OAuth, but also old-fashioned style, like just injecting the credentials into the forms of the browser, like username and password. I've done it just here in the Facebook. And as you've seen, when I choose this kind of the application, which is marketing, and maybe for me, it was not classified as the most important one. So in that case, there was no additional question of the authentication. One more point, if I'm outside and I need to get to my data, I just authenticate in the portal, again, by quick authentication. I don't even need to type the username and especially the password, because nobody likes password. So with just this one QR code scan, I'm authenticated securely in my environment. And I just clicked on my application, which is on-prem, deeply hidden in my environment. So there is no port open in the demilitarized zone to get there to the application. And as you see, there is the tunnel set between me and a kind of the gateway, which is deeply hidden in the environment. And this gateway is establishing the outbound connection. It's not me or the system who is establishing the session to your demilitarized zone. This is the big difference. And in the end, we see, yeah, I'm securely authenticated, totally transparently authenticated to the technical app or business app, which is hidden in our data center. I think it's quite important to protect, it's very important to protect these identities when thinking about establishing session. But what then? If we have workforce people and they need to get access to the sensitive data in the applications. So let's assume it's the financial analyst who needs to have an access to financial data. Maybe this is some healthcare professional who got to the healthcare application and just left the desk to go to the kitchen for coffee, and somebody is just compromising the personal information. So it would be good to also control it, to see what is happening inside. So for people who are aware of what PAM is, you may have such capabilities to isolate sessions, to record the sessions, but PAM is for technical people. We will show it in a second in the next session. But the question, how to build this tier of protection for business teams. So let's move a bit PAM ideology of recording sessions, controlling the sessions, etc., to the business world. Why? Because it would be hard to explain to these workforce teams how they should use PAMs, how to establish some RDP session to the proxy. It's great for technical guys, but not for business. And also we have, in the big environments, we have hundreds of different applications, so it would be hard to integrate them. And in every of these applications, there might be sensitive data. And after a user is authenticated, we can only trust on the permissions, roles, groups, which are defined in the application. So it would be good from the security side to control deeply these sessions, because in many cases, they have the high risk from the security side. That's why I would like to introduce you now something called CyberArk Secure Web Sessions solution. It's Swiss, the shortcut. It will be released in September 2021. And it's unique idea, especially unique in the SSO, in MFA, and in this kind of the identity security solutions. So the goal is to move this ideology of PAM to the identity security for workforce teams. The goal is to provide functionality of recording web sessions to the business apps. Like if somebody is publishing some data in LinkedIn, the marketing teams are publishing the data on LinkedIn, or somebody is getting to this financial data, we would like to record this session and create by it specific audit trail and search for specific events inside in these sessions. But it should be totally transparent for people. It shouldn't work in the way as we do with the PAM, with the session isolation, because then we would have the questions about, forward proxy, certificates, and points like that, integrations, incompatibility, etc. So it should be, for this specific group of people, it should be more on the endpoint side. I will show you that in a second how it can work. Next point is to continuously authenticate these people. If I'm in the session to my Salesforce and I'm moving to the kitchen from my desk, system should recognize it and react. Ask me, hey, Bartek, are you still there? If not, log me out, or ask me for additional authentication. It would be great to minimize the risk that somebody will just sit, copy some data and left the desk, or modify some data. And also would be great to harden this browser and these sessions to really protect the sessions in the environment. So this is the goal for the module which we are talking now, remember, is Swiss Secure Web Sessions. So let me give you just short walkthrough how it is really working in the environment. So first, let's start with building the policy. We have different applications, and in the policy settings, we can choose what we would like to achieve, like this continuous authentication, a recording of the different steps, session protection, so protect the browser session proactively. And we have different teams here, like finance team, other departments, or specific person to who we assign these permissions. And as you see, if I establish the session, I will have additional notes. What are the protection tiers enabled for me? And if I establish the session to, for example, Oracle NetSuite, so now we may record the session by dedicated browser plugin, which may be hardened in the browser. And I'm doing just some tasks, like maybe I would like to edit some parameters of an account, like a bank account. So I'm changing now the bank account number. Maybe I'm changing the bank number. So doing some modifications would be great to have some trail what happened during the session. So let's just save this change, and in a second we will see what are the options for the visibility from Swiss side. Additionally, if I would like to go somewhere, so you see example of our colleague Dima, who is just leaving the desk with a mobile phone on the call and discussing something with somebody moving for the coffee break. So now the system will just detect it, that the person left the desk, and there will be the short notification. Hey, are you still there? If yes, click I'm back. If not, we will just ask you for additional authentication. I think it's very important. And you've seen that the session was logged out. Now let's switch to the auditor or the owner of the system. So what they can do finally with these web sessions, without any RDP inside, they can just search for specific events. Let's focus on the NetSuite application of Oracle, and maybe let's put some event data, like search me for number or specific number which you choose, or the username or something else. So you see now that we have this full indexing. Like you see this first mouse click was there with the value 77. There was some additional mouse click. So we cleared the filter for this specific session. And now you can play a kind of the recording. It's not full video. It's not needed for web to record full video, but you have a kind of snapshots for every event that happened during this session. So on the left side, you have all of the metadata. On the right side, all of the snapshots. It's perfect. It's much better than if you would just analyze the logs of the application. So this is the goal. Let's summarize it for now about the workforce identity, and not only workforce, for all of the sessions today. Remember, first, zero trust. And what does it mean? First, to authenticate, securely authenticate identities, human and non-human, authorize them based on the best practices like just-in-time access. Only if access is needed, it should be allowed, based on the least privilege concept, to minimize permissions, minimize privileges, and then control what is happening and audit it to be compliant with the different regulations. So I think I'm on time. The 20 minutes passed. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, please ask us now or later. And I'm switching back to Marina.
Bartosz, thank you. Коллеги, пожалуйста, если есть вопросы, очень интересная презентация. Я хочу отметить, что это впервые мы презентуем это новое решение линейку Idaptive, и надеюсь, вам очень понравилось. И, пожалуйста, пишите в комментарии или в чат, или вопросы-ответы. У нас немного произошел сдвиг, и мы не уйдем на чашечку кофе, а продолжим наши сессии. И с нами сегодня Юрий. Если у вас возникают вопросы, вы все-таки пишите в чат, и я обязательно передам Бартошу данные вопросы, и мы ответим. Юрий.
Да. Добрый день, коллеги. Начнет мой коллега Алексей.
Юра, у тебя звук прекрасный, но что-то с ним не то. И пока техническая заминка и Юрий решает вопрос со звуком, Я еще раз хочу напомнить, что мы рады будем ответить на ваши вопросы. И параллельно я запущу маленькую «Запустить опрос». Угу. Юра, пожалуйста, давай попробуем один лайфхак. Я выключу свой звук, и ты попробуешь включить.
Добрый день, коллеги, меня слышно? Мы начнем с коллегой Алексеем. Алексей, я выключаю звук, чтобы не было эхо.
К сожалению,
да,
ничего
Марин,
не получилось.
мы просто сидим с Юрием рядышком, поэтому мы друг на друга фоним. Он сейчас выключил микрофон. Презентацию CyberArk PAM решения начну я, а дальше Юра уже сделает демонстрацию. Мы будем выступать вдвоем, окей?
Окей, все, не вопрос. Тогда передаем вам слово. Алексей, стартуй.
Все, я тогда расшариваю свой экран. Закрываю опрос. Окей, коллеги, значит, поговорим, так сказать, о решении, которое было флагманским решением CyberArk на протяжении, наверное, 20 лет, и таковым остается. Это решение Core Privileged Access. Это решение по защите учетных данных привилегированных пользователей. В общем-то, от чего мы их защищаем? Мы их защищаем, то есть что позволяет добиться системы? Мы с помощью этой системы позволяем защитить учетные записи привилегированных пользователей от хищения, от использования их для нелегитимного перемещения по сети, так называемого вертикального и горизонтального мувмента. Вот. И мы, естественно, позволяем не допустить использования этих учетных записей для нанесения нам какого-то ущерба, то есть для использования для каких-то несанкционированных действий. И все это, опять же, повторяюсь, в любой среде, on-prem, облачной, гибридной. Каким образом CyberArk предотвращает хищение учетных данных? Во-первых, мы их надежно храним в специальном зашифрованном хранилище. Во-вторых, мы изолируем сессии. То есть CyberArk – это шлюзовое решение. Вот, мы между нашими пользователями, то есть уязвимыми, недоверенным слоем инфраструктуры и нашими серверами, базами данных, мы ставим некий такой защищенный сервер, через который у нас будет идти вся коммуникация. И вот именно этот сервер будет сам запрашивать из защищенного хранилища необходимые пароли для подключения. Таким образом, наши пользователи, они этих паролей не знают, не видят, не вводят. Соответственно, даже если атакующий компрометирует рабочее место администратора системы, он не найдет там никаких учетных данных и никаким образом их не сможет там перехватить, найти для того, чтобы получить доступ над каким-то более критичным, так сказать, участком инфраструктуры. Плюс CyberArk умеет это делать не только для пользователей людей, но и для пользователей приложений, машин. То есть мы можем управлять точно так же учетными данными и защищать учетные данные, которые используются в приложениях, в скриптах. Это, в общем-то, умеют немногие. Каким образом CyberArk предотвращает скрытое передвижение? Ну, во-первых, мы можем заложить в CyberArk любую логику ролевого доступа. Вот это очень гибкое решение, которое, в общем-то, позволит выполнить и реализовать вот в логике все требования, все хотелки заказчика. Плюс мы можем построить такую систему, автоматически рандомизировать все учетные данные, построить такую систему, когда у нас вообще не будет в инфраструктуре каких-то учетных данных с широкими полномочиями. То есть когда у нас будет одна система, там один сервис, один набор привилегированных учетных данных, уникальный, все. Соответственно, мы таким образом минимизируем влияние возможных утечек на нашу инфраструктуру. То есть атакующий в такой среде никогда не получит учетку с какими-то широкими привилегиями, потому что их просто не существует. Ну и, естественно, мы везде, так сказать, инфорсим, мы используем принцип just in time. То есть мы строим нашу систему таким образом, чтобы пользователь получал привилегии не там автоматом всегда, а только тогда, когда необходимо. Для этого есть различные механизмы типа временного включения пользователя в группу привилегированных участников, либо же, например, специальные рабочие процессы или workflow подтверждения доступа к каким-то особо критичным системам, когда, например, даже администратор, который имеет права доступа, он не может подключиться к системе, пока, например, его руководитель или там бизнес-оунер этой системы не подтвердит. Он получит запрос и подтвердит, что да, все-таки можно давать этому человеку доступ. Это все как бы в системе настраивается, автоматизировано, все реализовано. Ну, естественно, PAM предотвращает, каким образом PAM предотвращает злоупотребление привилегиями? В первую очередь за счет как бы принципа наименьших привилегий. У нас наши пользователи работают по умолчанию всегда с правами обычных пользователей. Им не нужны более высокие привилегии для выполнения их работы, даже администратора. Значит, плюс в CyberArk есть очень крутые, на самом деле, наверное, лучшие отрасли инструменты аналитики, потому что CyberArk — это единственный вендор, который анализирует все то, что происходит внутри привилегированных сессий с точки зрения безопасности. Насколько это безопасно. Используется несколько движков аналитики, которые базируются на поведенческой аналитике и которые базируются на правилах. В общем-то, это все нам позволяет выявить и как бы предотвратить те инциденты, которые связаны с, ну, если у нас администратор пытается сделать что-то неразрешенное, что-то опасное, системой, к которым у него есть доступ. Плюс эти же механизмы аналитики, они нам позволяют автоматизировать очень много процессов, которые, ну, если их нет, ну, нужно делать руками. Например, CyberArk, он умеет обнаруживать новые привилегированные учетные записи, автоматически их переносить себе в сейф. Это на самом деле очень круто, потому что если такой возможности нет, а у многих конкурентов ее нет, то рано или поздно в любой инфраструктуре возникнет ситуация, когда, знаете, она будет разделена на два мира. Часть вот учетных записей, которые мы занесли в PAM, они будут контролироваться и защищаться, но как бы, а часть нет, потому что инфраструктура — это живой организм, она постоянно меняется, в ней постоянно создаются новые учетные записи, там, разрушаются учетные записи. И вот если нет автоматического механизма обнаружения и анбординга, то рано или поздно у нас возникнет такое shadow IT, которое мы не видим, и не контролируем, и не защищаем. Вот с CyberArk этого нет. Кроме того, CyberArk умеет выявлять, допустим, попытки обхода самого CyberArk, допустим, попытки прямого доступа к системе, попытки изменения паролей для пользователя. Он выявляет факты создания, допустим, новых привилегированных учеток или изменений прав пользователя и может автоматически реагировать на все эти инциденты, там, допустим, блокировать сессию пользователя, менять пароли для пользователя и так далее. То есть вот эта вот автоматизация реагирования, она очень важна, потому что IT-безопасность — это не, знаете, это не прописать видео и анализировать что-то потом. Это уже поздно, когда у вас случится инцидент. Да, как бы хорошо разобраться, найти причины, наказать виновных и так далее. Но IT-безопасность в первую очередь про то, как не допустить этого инцидента в первую очередь. Поэтому CyberArk — это вот та система, которая позволяет не допускать инцидентов, чтобы потом нечего было расследовать. Вот за счет именно этих механизмов анализа и автоматизации реагирования. Значит, хотел бы так кратенько резюмировать преимущества системы по сравнению с другими вендорами. Я тоже о CyberArk могу рассказывать несколько часов. Ну, как бы время ограничено. Значит, первое — это комплексность. То есть мы, опять же, можем обеспечить безопасность любых типов привилегированных учетов. Второе — это модульная архитектура. То есть именно модульная архитектура, когда мы все компоненты системы можем разнести по разным, допустим, уровням инфраструктуры, можем их задублировать. Она нам позволяет обеспечить необходимую отказоустойчивость и производительность, которая нужна такой критичной системе, как PAM. В-третьих, это удобство. То есть у нас много чего автоматизировано, всем этим удобно пользоваться. Ну, безопасность. В состав продукта уже входит Single Sign-On и Multi-Factor для привилегированных пользователей. Опять же, преимуществ много, поэтому у меня целых 2 слайда на преимущества. универсальность. У CyberArk, наверное, наибольшее в отрасли количество коннекторов к различным сторонним системам. Вот, есть огромный открытый маркет, CyberArk Marketplace, где вы можете на них посмотреть. Если вы там чего-то не найдете, этот коннектор всегда можно написать, потому что есть собственный движок написания коннекторов. Опять же, полноценный контроль. То есть мы пишем видео и снимаем контекстную информацию независимо от того, независимо от протоколов, инструментов, которые используются при администрировании. Потому что у многих конкурентов, да, у большинства конкурентов большие проблемы, например, с анализом HTTPS или там PLSQL, SQL, то есть каких-то таких более таких высокоуровневых протоколов. У нас с этим проблем никаких нет, независимо от того, что используется для администрирования. У security команды всегда будет видеозапись, всегда будет контекстная информация, синхронизированная с ней. Вот про автоматизацию я уже говорил. Ну и как бы очень важно, что с нового года в состав продукта CyberArk входит вот безопасный удаленный доступ без VPN, без передачи паролей по сети с полной записью действий и который обеспечит принцип just-in-time. Это CyberArk Alero. Вот. Вообще аналога ни у кого из конкурирующих решений вот этого инструмента нет. Это действительно гораздо более удобный и на порядок более безопасный инструмент удаленного доступа, чем традиционный, уже всем известный VPN. В общем-то, презентационная часть все. Спасибо, что послушали. Буду рад ответить на вопросы. Передаю слово Юрию. Юрий вам покажет, как это немножко работает.
Добрый день, остановись шеринг. Так, пожалуйста, замьются.
Юр, Алексей замьючены. Давайте пару минут. Леш, может, ты свой ноутбук выйдешь к коллегам немного в другую комнату. Возможно, сработает. Юра, попробуй сказать.
Да, Марина, я продолжу.
Отлично.
Внедрение самого решения сопряжено с изменением привычных процессов, и только следуя им, следуя best practices, можно достичь полной защиты привилегий вашей сети. Я расширю свой рабочий стол и начну с того, что само решение, речь идет о решении Corpus, полностью программное, оно доступно в виде установочных пакетов. Соответственно, можем на аппаратных серверах можем развернуть на виртуалках, посредством виртуализации можем развернуть в облаке. Основной инструмент управления – это веб-консоль, но не единственный, я покажу разные способы. И вот уже на этом моменте я скажу, что каким образом мы обеспечим защиту привилегий. Попросту говоря, отбираем эти привилегии у конечных пользователей и помещаем в сейфы, в защищенное хранилище. В тот момент, когда привилегии находятся в сейфах, мы исключаем нецелевое использование, мы исключаем возможность компрометации, и мы обеспечиваем соответствие этих привилегий корпоративных политикам, если мы задействуем функционал управления паролями. Поскольку Vault – это средство хранения наших секретов, речь идет не только о паролях, это могут быть токены, это могут быть SSH-ключи, это могут быть API-токены. На этом этапе, в соответствии с лучшей практикой, рекомендуется обеспечить интеграцию с мультифакторной. И посредством интеграции через Radius прокси, либо через SAML, мы можем уже на этом этапе обеспечить защиту дополнительным фактором. Можно использовать стороннее решение, сторонний Identity Provider, из популярных используют Google Identity Provider, либо же в новой модели подписки CyberArk нам доступны следующие возможности. Нам доступна возможность обеспечить биометрическую интеграцию, то есть речь о решении Vendor Remote Access, либо же Alero, либо же Idaptive, тоже это реализуется через SAML. Я произведу аутентификацию под доменной учетной записью. Следуя best practices, важно показать, что пользователи будут работать в привычной для них среде, и работа максимально упрощается, поскольку работа сопряжена, все привилегии, все секреты хранятся в сейфах. Что необходимо от пользователей, это найти систему, на которую выделяется доступ, и нажать кнопку Connect. По best practices мы следуем принципу сокрытия привилегий от конечного пользователя. Итак, из скопа систем, которые доступны пользователям, пользователь выбирает интересующую и нажимает кнопку Connect. Тут у нас есть варианты. Один вариант – это использовать HTML5 Gateway, наш дополнительный модуль, который позволяет установить соединение в новой вкладке браузера. Соответственно, за кулисами все это построено вокруг Remote App, именно на роли Remote App. Работает система. Произошло подключение, что тут хотелось бы добавить. Наша сессия изолирована. Пользовательская среда, которая может быть потенциально небезопасной, изолирована от целевой системы. Все за счет того же Remote App. И сам секрет, он не передается ни в коем случае на мою рабочую станцию. Сам секрет извлекается из сейфа на момент установления соединений и пробрасывается в сессию без раскрытия пользователя. Поэтому за счет изоляции мы обеспечиваем дополнительный уровень защищенности. Наш модуль, наш терминальный модуль дополнительно проходит процедуру харденинга, на котором мы задаем список разрешенных приложений, отключаем лишние сервисы. Итак, соединение установленного в новой вкладке браузера, но точно так же это опция. Можно использовать классический подход и использовать так называемые RDP-ярлыки. Вот они генерируются. Это одноразовый ярлык с коротким временем жизни, используя который производится подключение все к той же сессии. Да, если я раскрою детали, видно, что все построено вокруг Remote App. Вот у нас установлено соединение. Итак, это одна из опций. Либо мы используем HTML5 Gateway, либо мы используем RDP-ярлыки. В любом случае мы получаем индексирование всех действий, в любом случае мы получаем запись сессии, в любом случае мы получаем аналитику, риск-аналитику. Сейчас я переведу на вкладку мониторинг, поскольку я зашел с повышенными правами, и перейду на пункт активной сессии. Вот, собственно, здесь отображается сессия в целевой системе. Несколько команд для статистики. Соответственно, аудитор может оборвать сессию, если считает нужным. Итак, это один из способов. Да? Для систем, к которым мы доступаемся часто, можно предоставить пользователю возможность не заходить на веб-интерфейс и создать альтернативный способ использования многоразовых RDP-ярлыков. То есть в данном случае я не буду заходить на веб-консоль управления, но мне необходимо пройти аутентификацию. В данном случае я использую абсолютно тот же пароль, который был использован для захода на веб-консоль. Именно на этом этапе можно обеспечить интеграцию с мультифакторками, и точно так же будет производиться, устанавливаться соединение. Несмотря на то, что я не заходил на веб-интерфейс, мы по-прежнему обеспечиваем запись сессии, аналитику рисков и, в общем-то, используем в данном случае многоразовые ярлыки.
Юр, у нас параллельно есть вопрос, я буду тебе задавать, пока перебивая. Что подразумевается под изоляцией сессии?
Под изоляцией сессии подразумевается то, что конечный пользователь напрямую не устанавливает соединение с целевыми системами. Если открыть внутренности этого ярлыка в текстовом редакторе, да, то мы увидим, что там вшит адрес служебного сервиса. Это служебный сервис PSM, это терминальный сервис, а не целевой системе. И на уровне в одноразовых ярлыках используются одноразовые токены, здесь другие параметры, но факт тот, что сначала устанавливается RDP-сессия на служебный сервер, на котором уже посредством Remote App запускается клиентское ПО, будь то пути, будь то браузер, будь то Management Studio и т.д. То есть в таком случае сессия не прямая, она изолирована. В этом и заключается изоляция. Изоляция позволяет разграничить эти два сегмента, потому что, повторюсь, пользовательский сегмент может быть потенциально небезопасен, может быть установлено вредоносное ПО. Если я использую CyberArk, я исключаю на этом этапе риски. В том числе такой подход – это требование некоторых стандартов по обеспечению безопасности, в частности SWIFT. То есть такой подход использовать многоразовые ярлыки обеспечивается за счет RTP-проксирования. Также у нас есть возможность использовать SSH-проксирование. В таком случае я использую привычный SSH-клиент. Единственное, подключаясь к системе, повторюсь, я не знаю пароля от целевой системы, единственный пароль, который я знаю, это пароль от вольта, прописал строку подключения в определенном формате, да, мне предложено пройти аутентификацию. Речь о какой аутентификации? О аутентификации в системе CyberArk. Это тот пароль, который использовался для захода на веб-консоль. Повторюсь, это просто другое средство подключения.
Юра, я буду параллельно тебе давать еще вопросики подкидывать. У нас здесь,
да, пожалуйста.
Да. А служебный сервер – это компонент CyberArk?
Да, CyberArk состоит из нескольких компонентов. Сессия установилась, и вернусь на веб-консоль, и у нас есть вкладка, где отображены наши компоненты на вкладке System Health. Итак, все построено вокруг защищенного хранилища. Здесь оно реализовано у меня в отказоустойчивой архитектуре.
Я добавлю вопрос как раз в хранилище. Пароли, которые хранятся в Vault, могут быть доступны админу в открытом незашифрованном виде? Это еще один вопрос туда же.
Пароли хранятся в сейфах. В логике CyberArk у каждого сейфа есть владелец, owner, и изначально только owner может просматривать эти пароли, да, даже встроенный администратор не будет их знать. Если владелец сейфа делегирует права на просмотр, делегирует некоторые права на добавление доступов, в общем, здесь все построено от владельца. Владелец это свое право делегирует, предоставляет авторизацию на сейфе, только тогда эти пользователи заполучают доступ. То есть в коробочном таком исполнении clear text в чистом виде этот пароль недоступен. Итак, все пароли в хранилище – это, по сути, основной модуль, с которым коммуницируют все остальные. Также у нас есть веб-консоль управления, которая построена на Windows ES сервере. Вот у нас есть терминальные серверы, это наши вот модули. Модуль PSM, который использует функционал Remote App, и модуль SSH-проксирования PSM for SSH он называется. И также у нас есть модуль управления паролями и модуль поведенческой аналитики. В конечном итоге все сессии наши записаны, все пароли у нас хранятся в сейфе. И по действиям пользователям строится поведенческий профиль. Да, вначале система пребывает в режиме обучения. Она учитывает построение профиля следующую статистику. Это команды, которые вводят пользователи. Это источники, с которых эти пользователи подключаются. Учитывается информация, в какой период времени пользователи подключают. В конечном итоге это позволяет выявлять аномалии. И сейчас я перейду на вкладку Security Events. Мы увидим здесь примеры аномальной активности, в частности, подозрительная активность, были выполнены привилегированные команды, которые ранее не выполнялись, на которые наша система заточена, потому что из коробки вот у нас есть такая вот оснастка из привилегированных команд. Да, все эти команды можно задать в синтаксисе регулярных выражений. Ну, для Windows это заголовки окон, это то, что попадает в индексирование, и именно по заголовкам окон мы можем построить определенную логику, мы можем запрещать выполнять определенные действия, какие-то привилегированные команды. Для SSH это команды. Настроив эти правила, скажу такую вещь. Для Unix-систем, для Windows-систем CyberArk реализовал следующий подход. У нас есть модуль поведенческой аналитики, который содержит встроенные правила корреляции для выявления отклонений за счет интеграции с CM. Это один способ двунаправленной интеграции. CyberArk может отправлять не только логи на CM, но может принимать логи со стороны CM. И наш модуль поведенческой аналитики будет выявлять аномалии. Речь о каких логах? Речь о логах аутентификации, речь о подключении, о смене паролей. То есть, настраивая интеграцию, это один способ, мы можем выявлять попытки обхода CyberArk, попытки подключения мимо нашего терминального сервера. За счет поведенческого модуля PT и интеграции SIEM мы можем выявлять создание новых пользователей на целевой системе. Если мы дополнительно устанавливаем агенты для Windows, агенты для Unix-систем, мы можем в режиме реального времени предотвращать определенные действия и предотвращать заход на систему, минуя CyberArk. Если мы не устанавливаем агенты, а используем наше шлюзовое решение, что может сделать CyberArk? Детектируя попытки обхода, можно настроить реакцию. Да? Если мы видим, что кто-то меняет пароль нашим пользователям, минуя CyberArk, CyberArk может форсированно сбросить пароль этой учетной записи, таким образом исключая нецелевое использование этой системы.
Юра, есть еще вопрос один. Возможно, если тебе удобно, я прочитаю. Или
прочти, пожалуйста.
Да, хорошо. При изолированном пользователе используется, например, браузер. В любом случае возможна уязвимость. В таком случае система только поможет провести расследование инцидента.
Уязвимости браузера возможно. Повторюсь, наш терминальный сервер PSM проходит процедуру харденинга. В чем она заключается? Заблокируются излишние порты, которые у нас доступны из коробочной установки Windows. Блокируются излишние привилегии, и мы можем определить за счет виндовый функционал и блокер, перечень разрешенных приложений. Да? Если мы говорим про браузер, естественно, уязвимости могут присутствовать. Харденинг для браузера заключается в следующем. На уровне системного реестра мы усекаем возможности браузера, мы запускаем его в режиме инкогнито, мы исключаем возможность открытия URL-строки, адресной строки. Пользователи не будут в состоянии на лишние ссылки переходить. Мы можем определить по маске разрешенный URL, в принципе, запрещенный URL. Это штатное средство Windows. Да, мы можем исключить возможность сохранения файлов, исключить всплывающие окна, заблокировать возможность открытия новых вкладок. Это все реализуется за счет харденинга. Собственно, терминальный сервер наш в домене, поэтому приветствуется также использование доменных политик, которые могут дополнительно обеспечить сохранность. Ну, в конечном итоге, повторюсь, сам секрет, пароли, например, если мы говорим от сайтов, они передаются по защищенному протоколу и не пробрасываются конечному пользователю. Если так произошло, что за счет некоторых уязвимостей браузера, да, пароль этот скомпрометирован, то в таком случае у CyberArk есть политика одноразовых паролей, то есть мы можем ее активировать, enforce one-time password access. В таком случае после завершения сессии, после того, как мы закрываем браузер, CyberArk будет производить смену пароля для этой счетной записи. Таким образом, мы на корню исключаем попытки манипуляций. Да. Все это возможно благодаря тому, что CyberArk предоставляет средства кастомизации. Все это возможно благодаря тому, что для различных веб-приложений мы можем создать собственные плагины. И если таковых нет в Marketplace, потому что зачастую можно не придумывать велосипед, а зайти на наш Marketplace, который, к слову, публично доступен. Он уже содержит множество интеграций с готовыми, множество готовых интеграций с системами по некоторым ключевым словам. Можно поискать системы, которые нас интересуют. Так, скажу такую еще вещь. Интеграция с identity провайдерами, интеграция с мультифакторками. Подобно тому, как можно обеспечить дополнительным фактором, дополнительно обезопасить наш веб-интерфейс, точно так же мы можем обеспечить и PSM, и SSH тоже мультифакторкой. Да, при этом в новой версии появилась вот такая вот функциональность. Когда я проходил аутентификацию в пути, я вводил в базовом варианте пароль. Да? Настраивая интеграцию с мультифакторками, да, можно настроить дополнительное подтверждение в мобильном приложении, если мы говорим о Idaptive, подтверждение за счет SMS или телефонного звонка. Но вот каждый раз, открывая пути, возможно, это будет неудобно вводить, поэтому новая функциональность, которая появилась, MFA-кэширование для нашего модуля PSMP for SSH. В таком случае, это, по сути, используя эту функциональность, мы идем на компромисс, с одной стороны, с защищенностью, с другой стороны, с удобством, потому что все это в балансе у нас. Да, система может сгенерировать краткосрочные SSH-ключи, мы можем этот период задать, и, используя эти ключи, мы уже не будем проходить аутентификацию, за счет того, что мы прошли один раз, да, и, в общем-то, у нас сразу пакет ключей доступен для использования в Unix-система, либо сразу в пути, да, в разных форматах. В таком случае, в принципе, конечному пользователю будет удобней, потому что не будет каждый раз проходиться эта аутентификация, но, с другой стороны, это не может использоваться на постоянной основе. Да, сейчас завершаем. Итак, следуя лучшим практикам, мы можем обезопасить секреты, которые у нас находятся на разных системах. Мы можем обеспечить секреты в скриптах, об этом мы не говорили за счет сжатого времени, да. Секреты по лучшим практикам рекомендуется хранить в Вольте, прятать их конечным пользователям предоставлять единственную кнопку Connect. Пользователи подключаются, работают в привычных приложениях, работают в привычных средах. Тут у нас есть различные возможности за счет вот такой вот гибкости. Мы можем устанавливать новые соединения в вкладках, в браузерах, в этих RDP ярлыках. Можем предоставить возможность, повторюсь, не заходить на веб-интерфейс, использовать многоразовые ярлыки, можно использовать пути-клиенты, там, где мы говорим о SSH-подключении. В итоге мы получаем индексирование всех действий, и мы получаем риск-аналитику, выявление аномалий, и за счет интеграции с SIEM, опционально за счет установки эндпоинтных решений, мы можем выявлять попытки обхода системы, сбрасывать пароли и исключать нецелевое использование. За счет этого мы получаем такой комбайн для разных аспектов, для защиты различных секретов.
Юра, спасибо тебе огромное. Я вынуждена немного прервать, так как мы очень сильно вышли со временем. У тебя есть вопросы, и я надеюсь, ты ответишь в блоке вопросы-ответы. Мы потом вообще все вопросы озвучим, те, которые не озвучили. И сейчас у нас в гостях Юрий Лукашов с Киевстара. Алексей, Юрий, можете присоединиться? Как меня слышно? Юрий, мы вас не слышим. Если вы меня не слышите, напишите в чат. Хотя, если вы меня не слышите, то вы меня не слышите. Окей, Юрий подключается. Алексей Лозиков, я тебя прошу подключиться также. Киевстар очень давно использует CyberArk. Да, пожалуйста, представь Юрия.
Да, приветствую. С нами сегодня Юрий Лукашов, из компании Киевстар. Киевстар – это один из, наверное, самых крупных, возможно, самый крупный заказчик CyberArk в стране. И спасибо, я бы хотел поблагодарить Юрия за то, что он согласился к нам сегодня присоединиться и немножко поговорить. Юрий, как связь? Слышно нормально?
Меня слышно?
Да,
отлично, да,
супер. Здравствуйте, да, мы используем решение CyberArk компании уже больше 10 лет. Фактически с самого начала, как решение появилось в Украине, начиналось это решение с цифровых сейфов, и потом на базе этого решения цифровых сейфов уже появился модуль PAM, уже дорос до PAM. Изначально назывался Privilege Account Security. Это привилегированные учетные записи, которые мы использовали. Было у нас изначально там, по-моему, в какой-то момент 100 лицензий, и сейчас до заключения договора у нас 400 пользователей и 75 одновременных рабочих пользователей, которые работают одновременно. Решение последний год очень сильно поднялось. Связано это в связи с защитой персональных данных и работой третьих организаций в компании. То есть все, кто работает в компании от третьих организаций, это поддержка, работники, которые делают какие-то разработки, в которых есть доступ к персональным данным, все они работают через PAS. У нас такое сейчас решение используется.
Слушай, а если вернуться там на 10 лет назад в историю, ты не помнишь, рассматривались ли конкурирующие продукты и
Да,
почему
был
в
такой...
то время остановились на CyberArk?
Ну, CyberArk, почему? Мы купили для обмена документами коммерческой тайны решения цифровые сейфы. Это как бы откуда вышел ПАМ. Вот, и обмена. Потом нам предложили попробовать надстройку над этим решением, использовать подключение к системе через цифровые сейфы. Хранить пароли, использовать подключение с помощью. И ну, как бы решение сначала как-то так не пользовалось популярностью, потом со временем начало пользоваться популярностью, потому что
Потом вы
подрядчики,
пробовали, да?
Да, подрядчики, которые подключались к нам, они начали работать через это решение, делать свои настройки, и мы контролировали их работу. То есть предоставление доступа. Это первый вариант был. В тот момент, в каком-то там, ну, наверное, в 11, 10, 12, где-то в этих годах появилось такое решение Balabit, у которого было преимущество в том, что можно было делать прямое подключение по RDP клиенту. На тот момент у CyberArk не было этого решения. Вот. И даже подумывали о переходе с CyberArk на Balabit. Потом CyberArk доделал решение о возможности подключения прямого RDP коннекта на конечные системы, и больше вот не происходило, ну, как бы никогда выбора в сторону другого решения. И вот ну, по требованиям компании последний год происходил тендер, в котором принимали несколько решений. Это было IBM, Arcon, насколько я помню, Софтика.
Слушай,
вот.
ну, насколько я знаю, там у вас абсолютно все PAM-вендоры, наверное, какие есть в мире, они пытались вас, так сказать, захантить, там со старта было больше 10 участников, да, это ты уже там финалистов сейчас говоришь. Ну и вы в итоге приняли решение остаться с нами, спасибо. В общем-то, это была жесткая битва, и мы ее в очередной раз, конечно, выиграли.
Да, было. Ну, вот такое.
Слушай, а как вот, то есть вы уже эксплуатируете решение больше 10 лет, как ты можешь оценить вообще удобство эксплуатации с точки зрения как бы того человека, который, грубо говоря, там по другую сторону консоли сидит? Насколько тебе комфортно, некомфортно работать с этим решением?
Ну, тут надо спросить у пользователей.
Не,
Больше у пользователей. Но, в принципе, вот разговор тут с ребятами происходит, ну, которые там поддержку оказываем по настройкам. Но за счет того, что есть возможность работы прямого RDP подключения и прямого подключения по SSH, Юра демонстрировал эти все настройки, вот, то, в принципе, у пользователя особо нареканий по этому поводу нет, то это удобно.
А с точки зрения администрирования?
С точки зрения администрирования, в принципе, да, удобно, но, как бы сказать, смотря на другие решения, которые как бы, ну, просматривались, и на решение CyberArk, то, в принципе, у CyberArk эта реализация намного лучше. Ну вот, и причем скажу так, что вот тем веянием, которые появляются, как бы вот по поводу вообще по PAM решениям такого класса, то в принципе CyberArk доделывает и решает. То есть если там 3-4 года назад нельзя было работать, ну, был только CMD-апплет для работы с системой там заведения, добавления и тому подобное, то последних там вот 5 лет сделали REST IP, и этот REST IP усовершенствует, и довольно сильно он развивается, и есть модуля под PowerShell, которые позволяют, ну, добавлять, создавать коннекты. Это очень, ну, уменьшает административную такую работу рутинную, которая требуется. Так что вот в этом плане не знаю, как все остальные, вот еще такой пример приведу. Один из подрядчиков проводил у нас обновление, и одновременно он открывал 200 окон на пользователя. Ну, 200 сессий через спам на свои системы для работы. И, в принципе, справлялась. Да, был такой. У нас вот подрядчик, он, ну, очень...
Ты прям предвосхитил мой последний вопрос. Я у тебя хотел спросить, как ты оцениваешь, просто у вас же много пользователей, огромная компания. Как ты оцениваешь надежность решения? Были ли в истории какие-то серьезные инциденты, там долгие периоды неработоспособности?
Ну, Леш, я скажу по решению такое дело. Есть как бы требования, которые предъявляются не больше к решению, а к операционной системе и, соответственно, к оборудованию для этой операционной системы. Если Windows терминальный сервер, через который работает PAM, грубо говоря, требует там на одного пользователя как минимум 2 ядра и там гигабайт памяти, то, соответственно, при работе там большого количества пользователей железо должно быть соответствующее. Это предъявление именно к решению самого PAM, ну, PSM, вернее, модуля. Вот, по поводу хранилища, ну, очень удобно, ну, как бы у нас, грубо говоря, хранилище там уже так нормально, за 4 тера проходит. Я думаю, что за последний год оно еще увеличивается, ну, в разы поднимется. В связи с новой лицензией, которая планируется там, и нагрузкой на решение самого, то оно как бы масштабируется, переносится, причем, ну, большое спасибо CyberArk, они на такие переносы, там, перенос с одного сервера на другой выделяют там тестовую лицензию на определенный промежуток времени в рамках поддержки, чтобы сделать перенос хранилища с одного сервера на другой. Действительно, такая возможность есть. Так что, ну, кроме нас, я так знаю, еще в Киеве кто-то, пару компаний, которые используют, может, они еще что-то добавят.
Все, супер, Юрий. Огромное тебе спасибо, что нашел и, так сказать, поделился своим опытом. Оставайся с нами. Я думаю, даже несмотря на твой 10-летний опыт, ты сегодня тоже можешь услышать что-нибудь интересное. Вот наши коллеги из CyberArk планируют рассказать о новых продуктах, новых как бы фишках тех решений, которые уже есть. Поэтому будем рады, если ты с нами останешься. Окей, тогда на связи. Так, у нас тут вопросы в чате.
Да, Алексей, я прошу тебя ответить вопросы в блоке «Вопросы-ответы». Мы потом в конце зачитаем все вопросы и ответы, так
я
будет
тогда
удобнее.
Их отвечу в письменном видео, а ты передаешь слово следующему.
Да. Bartosz, we can start. Коллеги, у нас следующая сессия.
I'm with you.
О решении CyberArk Alero. Yes, we can start.
Let me
Yes.
just share my screen. Please let me know when you are able to see it.
Пока Барташ шарит экран, хочу обратить внимание, что у нас присылают вопросы и ответы, а мы немного не успеваем по времени, поэтому наши коллеги будут отвечать, а в конце мы зачитаем все вопросы и ответы, чтобы у вас также была информация, возможно, вы хотели задать, но не успели. Все хорошо видно. We can start.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Yuri, for joining. Thank you very much, colleagues from Softprom, for running great presentation of the PAM, of the heart of the privilege access management solution. I heard there was the great discussion about the hardening, etc. From our side, when we talk to the red teams, and we do it a lot with our internal red team, but also with the different like external auditors and red simulation teams, all of them say that if we deploy PAM, of course, properly, because technology is one point, but also like the way that the method, how to implement it is very important, that we'll also cover this topic later on. But everybody agrees that it's much harder to do anything in the environment, first, because of the technology, but secondly, because we push to reduce all of these bad practices which are happening in the environment and which were used between the attacks presented by Andy and Len, like using the API keys on the workstations, using local administrative rights on the workstations, storing statically keys in the machine. So there's a lot of bad practices, and I think we are now in the world where we don't need to convince so much that PAM itself, as the program, is something critical. Some time ago, we've seen like people were thinking if it's needed or not. Now is the must, in our opinion. And in most discussions, which we do have with customers and prospects, it's not like the question if PAM is needed, but how to get to it. So let's assume we already deployed PAM in your environment, in IT, in OT environment. And the question now is, if we have third-party vendors who need to have an access to it, what method to use? And what is the common method during all of the discussions which we have with you? VPNs. Yeah, we use the VPN session to our demilitarized zone, and then somehow we get to the PAM, we authenticate again in the PAM, we choose account and get to the environment. It would still be good, but in many cases, if we don't have PAM yet, the main situation is VPN and that's it, or VPN and Bastion host from Microsoft. These are very common tactics, and customers are complaining a lot on the current situation. Why? First of all, because of the security. So let me just switch my screen. Because of security, last years, we've heard a lot about attacks which were initiated due to the VPNs. It's not like I'm trying to do the black PR on specific technology, vendor, etc. For sure, it's not. I think VPNs in general did a great job in the last 2 decades, but it is the technology invented in around 1996. And nowadays, we see that the perimeter is really moving to identity side. So you can just go to the browser and you can just Google like egregor VPN, for example, and you can see how, I will put it to English, you can see how ransomwares were using in last years different vulnerabilities, different 0 days on the VPN concentrators, because if you have the conventional VPN, you need to open port to IPsec VPN, to SSL VPN, and if the port is open, so you can use even tools like Shodan or something else. I don't want to type any names of the known vendors, I'll just put the VPN, and you can search in the internet on what IP addresses there are some VPNs used. So egregor ransomware is one example. We have different, like you can just search for Fox Kitten campaign, very known in last years. It was Iranian offensive campaign, which took more than 3 years. And in this report, you will see that for many companies worldwide, attackers were able to get into due to the different. So yeah, you see that initial breach is because of the backdoors in the VPN, 0 days in the VPNs. So this is actually one point on which customers are afraid of, because there has to be some port open. Additionally, especially nowadays, if we have some maybe external third-party vendor, domain administrator, database administrator, our OT operator, or some company who is managing our OT stuff, let's call him Mike. So probably now it could happen that he's sharing his computer at home, and the same computer may be used to surf in the internet, to get access to emails, and unfortunately, in the same time, to get access to your critical resources. So what it may happen is that if we have this person is establishing the session with a VPN, maybe there is MFA. In many cases, we are just using passwords and certificates, for example, like more old-fashioned style. So if the pipe is set between this person and the enterprise resources, usually we define rules like, this person will have an access to this specific subnet, network, solutions. And if hacker compromise this workstation, through this workstation, hacker may compromise your environment. So this is one of the very important points which customers are really afraid of. Next one is how to provision this access, how to invite third-party vendors to the environments. One point, how to provide them agents, because in many cases we are using not site-to-site VPN, but agent-based VPN. So we need to install these agents. There may be some incompatibility between the agents for the third-party vendors. There may be some hardening uplocker or something like that. And due to it, these third-party vendors will not be able to run effectively these agents. Shared password, unfortunately, still, even now, very common bad practice that we provide to third-party vendor password, and then there is no zero trust at all, because you are not sure if it's still Bartek who is getting access to your environment, because maybe I gave this password to somebody else, or somebody else compromised this password in the environment. And last point, also very interesting for me, is to hear from you how long it may take you to invite third-party vendors to your environment. We talk about it a lot with our customers, and in many cases, it takes days. My personal record from our region is more than a week. So it means if I need to do something now, if I need to troubleshoot something for you, the time when you invite me, it may be like more than day, 2-3 days, because, you know, from the technical perspective, but more even from processing perspective. Do and find the approvals, create the accounts in the VPNs, in the domain, in some VDIs, in the PAM. It may be very complicated. So best would be to enforce this zero trust with a VPN-less solution. But the question, if it's VPN-less, so you mentioned the topic related to browsers, some vulnerabilities of the browsers, and especially if we would put this PAM, privilege access management, in the demilitarized zone, we have never recommended to do so. It's just too strategic solution to place it in the demilitarized zone. So yeah, we should find some compromise between these two technologies. It should be passwordless. Yeah, passwords are not valid, shouldn't be valid anymore. It's too risky and too heavy, too difficult to manage all of these passwords and rotate them. And let's go together with this strategy of just-in-time access. And we heard these complaints from different companies, different customers, and we created our own solution for you to invite vendors and for them to easily but securely get into the PAM solution, which is deeply hidden in your environment. So let's put the assumptions as following. Let's assume you have some data center. It may be the local one, it may be cloud, it may be IT, it may be OT, whatever it is. You have your critical devices inside. It may be database, application, server, domain controller, whatever. In front of it, we build the PAM implementation with the session isolations and all of the topics discussed by Alex and Yuri in the previous session. And we want for the third-party vendor provide access to this PAM, but to not open port anywhere here in the front, because it's risky, as we've seen, and you can just Google it. So how we can do it, and what is the most effective and secure way possible for do so? We provide you service, which is called CyberArk VPAM, CyberArk Vendor Privilege Access Management Solution. We put in front of your PAM, which is hidden in OT, we have a couple of implementations of this solution, not only in IT, but also in industrial network in our region. This connector, which will be placed in front of the PAM, is based on the containers and the Docker, very easy to launch and manage. It will establish the session, like outcoming session from your data center. So guess what? It doesn't need to be DMZ. It can be hidden. You can use some proxy, etc., for getting it out from the network. It's still much more secure to do it in that way. When, for example, port 443 is open for outbound connectivity, then inbound connectivity, because all of the scanners and automation tools can find it. Here, there is no way somebody will find it because the connection is outbound. And what is happening? In this VPAM solution, you can invite vendors. It's very easy. First, CyberArk is API-first company, so you can automate everything in CyberArk. Additionally, even manually, you just get as administrator to this VPAM console and type the invitation. You can just fill the forms and send the link to register to the person to register in the portal itself, and you will just approve it. Then the person, like third-party vendor, is going to receive the link in the email with notification, you've been invited to CyberArk environment. Would you like to use it? You just click the link. You just use the browser. No agents needed on the workstation. In the browser, you will be directed to the CyberArk VPAM solution. You use your mobile phone, smartphone, Android, iOS. We have even solution for more old-fashioned style of applications and mobile devices. You register this mobile device, you install the mobile application on the mobile device. It's much easier, better of installing anything on the mobile device than on the desktop usually. And you can use your biometry to authenticate in this VPAM solution, like fingerprint, face ID scan, QR codes, etc. And what will happen then, after being authenticated, your session will be established between the browser, VPAM connector, and the portal and proxy. So we can combine like the end-to-end encryption between user and the connector. Keep in mind, nothing is decrypted in the cloud. Don't be worried that when using this cloud solution, some sensitive data will be stored there, or some keys will be stored, or biometric authentication. Nothing like that is happening. Authentication is in secure enclave or some other tools on the mobile device, and application is just using the result, authenticated or not. If yes, it's providing the data to the cloud, and person is transferred transparently, so the certificate, etc., is of the VPAM connector, is end-to-end encryption. Very important point. So just to summarize it from the theory, and I will show you just the practice now. We are not using any passwords at all in the environment. It's great, modern, and secure. Only biometric authentication is used. You don't need to have any agents and any VPNs. It will be quick win. It's platform independent, so you can use Windows, Linux, Unix, whatever the third-party vendor has, it's allowed to be used. We have end-to-end encryption, and provisioning takes seconds or minutes, not days or weeks. Let me just give you example of the demo. Let's assume I am the administrator of my tenant. I get to this portal, Alero EU, or in some other domain in the world. So I'm in the Europe. So yeah, let's use the EU one. I authenticate by using my mobile phone by biometry. I have different sites. Like I can be administrator of 2 sites. I can be the third-party vendor, some another site. I choose my site. There is my application, like my PAM portal, to which I would like to invite vendor. So I'm just typing the parameters of this vendor, like what is my vendor company, first name, last name, email address, and also phone number. So these 2 parameters, email address, to which we will send the invitation, and the phone number, based on which we will do the registration on of the mobile application in the smartphone. So when typing it, the rest is about the authorization. Based on JIT, permissions, you can assign what role it will be from the PAM side. And we just save it. That's it. It took me like 20 seconds. So now this third-party vendor received the invitation in the email, or you can use another tool by API. And you see, I previously registered my mobile app. It was like 1 minute. Now I scan this QR code with my biometry, and I'm in the cloud now, and I choose to what data center and to what PAM application I would like to get to. And guess what? Now the session is tunneled between me to this connector, which is hidden in the environment, and to the portal, which you already seen presented by Yuri. So now we can choose to what system I would like to get access. I will use this HTML5 because we don't want to open any ports like RDP, SSH, etc. So everything is encapsulated in the TLS and in the HTML5. So just to summarize, I'm now on the domain controller. It was like very fast. Yeah, I haven't set any VPN connection, etc. Just the browser, working on it. I can even transfer some data if it's allowed by the company policy. You can define it. And I don't know any password. So for most of the attacks, the reason for the attacks to be effective is that the third-party vendor, after setting up the VPN, they need to know password for domain controller, Active Directory, etc. Here, I don't know it. If I did something wrong, my session has been suspended, as you've seen now. And now I can, as an auditor, I switch to the auditor and I see it. What is happening? On domain controller, Bartek Kryński or John user in that case, use the xadmin and open this unauthorized application like the PowerShell for AD. I can see it from the monitoring side. So the monitoring is there. You see the metadata indexing. You see what is happening in the session. If something is wrong, you can join the session, or as I do now, I terminate it. I closed it. When the session is terminated, now we have the recording stored in this digital fortress in the vault, fully encrypted. Nobody can delete them. And you can see what happened on this third-party vendor session. What was wrong? You have the full metadata indexing. You can play the recording, see everything what is there. Somebody could say, yeah, but this is the web-based. Maybe there are some third-party vendors who don't like web-based applications. So what you can do, you can from the portal, you can download the RDP file, put it into your RDP manager, and when you launch this session, take a look what is happening. I'm connecting to the cloud service, and then I receive the notification in my mobile application. Bartek, is it you who is connecting? If yes, choose your account which you would like to use. So I choose the account, and what is happening there, you remember I asked you to think about just-in-time access. So in that case, what options do we have for the approvals? Your auditors, your owners of the system should approve my access to your environment. But should they receive an email, open the browser if it's 2 a.m.? For sure not. So we wrote additional functionality where now approver will receive notification in the mobile device. Hey guys, can you approve it? So they say, okay, let's authenticate first, check who is it, why he needs to have an access. Okay, we approved it. Now requester received the notification, you are ready to go. And guess what? The session is established. So it's very fast, very ergonomic, very secure. This is the goal for it. So just to summarize the architecture for both solutions, for this workforce identity for business people and this VPAM solution for third-party vendors, and also for your employees, this workforce identity, of course. Doesn't matter if you are third-party vendor, workforce IT admin, we can remotely get to the site and you can choose the path. If it's the technical access, you are getting to PAM. If it's business access, you are directly getting to your business systems, on-premise applications. And just to confirm, this Swiss, this secure web session solution, which I presented previously, will be available soon because we will release it in September for both, for cloud applications and on-prem, due to this idea of the connectors, a remote access connector and identity connector. In both cases, it's working in pretty similar way. Connector will establish session to the cloud. So no need to open any inbound ports on the firewall. I think it's very important to understand it. What is the value for it from the security side and ergonomy side? So let's just summarize these sessions. What are the values of the VPAM itself? First, you will improve overall security layer in the environment because we will not use any inbound ports, firewalls, VPNs, etc. You can reduce number of licenses and use native tool of CyberArk to get to your CyberArk resources. The deployment is very quick. Most of things are in the cloud base, are API based, and you just place one connector or the cluster of the connectors as the container. So it's something like minutes of the implementation. It's natively integrated with the PAM. Yeah, and in case of any like spikes, any peaks of the performance, it's very easy like to grow with and the scalability is very easy to be achieved. As we are talking about containers, rest is cloud-based, so everything is on our side. So I guess this is it from my side for today. If you have any questions, just let us know. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Bartosz, thank you very much. Коллеги, если у вас есть вопросы, вы задавайте. Я вижу, здесь уже много вопросов скопилось. Мои коллеги параллельно будут отвечать на блоки вопросы-ответы в конце презентации. Мы обязательно с вами прочитаем их вместе с ответами. И сейчас я хочу передать слово Roy. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we can start.
Okay. So I will share my screen, just a second.
Yeah. Пока Рой шарит экран, хочу напомнить, что у нас есть возможность слушать перевод, и вы можете переключиться на выбрать язык русский и слушать в русской версии. Great. Yes, we see.
Okay. a second. I will share my turn on my camera.
Mhm.
Sorry that I didn't use your background.
It's no problem at the moment.
Okay, cool. So thank you very much again. You can see my screen. I can start.
Yeah, we can start. We see your screen. It's great.
Okay. So thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Great pleasure to be here today, and thank you for the invitation. As you mentioned, my name is Roy Abayev. I'm in the last 4 years at CyberArk, and today I'm the sales specialist for Endpoint Privilege Management at the EMEA at CyberArk. So let's start. So probably most of you hear on a daily basis about all the privileged credential attacks. The famous one were the WannaCry, Yahoo, and so on. But since the COVID-19, we see that the numbers of attacks are rising up. We are talking about, we just heard about the last 2 attacks that were in the last 2 weeks, the dark side attack, and several months ago, the SolarWinds attack, the ransomware attacks. But it's not only the ransomware, malware, and credential theft. We see a variety of attacks on smaller organization, huge organization, on corporation, and so on. So most of these attacks, in the end of the day, starters on the endpoints. And why? What are the challenges? Basically, the endpoints are quite easy targets. In the end of the day, most of us are educated and we are familiar with the IT and so on. But again, on the COVID-19, we see that even that we are educated, we see a lot of penetration, a lot of attacks to the end users and from there to the organization. Some words about the surface attack. So the most common attack is the phishing attack. It's meaning that we will send we will send thousands of emails to customers. And as you already know, the most common sites are the LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. So we can take the username and start to penetrate to sending thousands of emails. Researchers see that in the end of the day, you will open 1 or even more than that emails. And once you open this phishing email, the attackers will penetrate your organization and they will sit on the workstation and they will start to move on the organization. This movement we call lateral movements. So we will use from the end user workstation, we will store his hash password, his user password. In the end of the day, are the hash password. We will use this password and we will start moving on the organization from the workstation to the server and from the server to the domain controller. And then we will have the keys for the castle. And once we have this information, the credentials to the domain controller, so the organization in the attacker's hand. And this will be the end of the game for the organizations. So what exactly are what exactly users with admin rights can do? In the end of the day, the user with admin rights can change the system configuration. They can install and start services. They can remove and add any driver that they would like to do. And the most common things that they are doing is to disable the antivirus. In addition, install malware. We see that in order to install 90% of the malware, the attackers may need to have admin rights. So once they have these rights, it will be quite easy for them to run these malware attacks. And last one is the access and change the accounts. You can create and delete accounts. You can create shadow accounts, which give you a backdoor to any organization that you succeed to penetrate. Researchers show us that more than 87% of the organization still don't remove the local admin. So what exactly is the dilemma, between security versus operation? Users with admin rights will be quite happy. I always say happy life, happy wife, it's here. So once you have local admins, your productivity is much more better as a user. But in security impact, so what's happening in security terms? So we are talking an increase of security incidents. On the other way, we are talking about users that their credentials were taken. So once you're taking the credentials to developers, this is the end of the game for you as the IT guy. So then you will have increasing costs. Increasing costs means a lot of costs that should be spent. In addition, in terms of security, so you're definitely more protected, but still we can say that it's the chicken or the egg. What is better, to be with admin rights or to remove these rights? In the last several years, we see a lot of money that is being spent on the endpoint. In this year, we are talking about $12 billion that organizations spend for endpoint solutions. The most common is the antivirus solutions, EDR, next generation antivirus, firewall, and so on. But in addition, we are talking about the configuration management. But still, there is one missing block in all this solution, which is called the least privilege technology. And this is where CyberArk comes with our solution, with the Endpoint Privilege Management solution. So how exactly we are doing it? We can divide our solution to 3 blocks: the least privilege block, the privilege defense block, and the integration block. Let's start with the least privilege. One of the strongest features is the privilege management. What exactly we will do? We will remove the local admin rights from the end users in our organization. But before doing it, you could not remove these credentials, these rights, admin rights, before learning what exactly your users are running every day. So we will put our system, the Endpoint Privilege Manager and management system, on learning mode. So we will learn what exactly happened on your organization. I can promise you that in period of 2 to 3 weeks, we will know what exactly happens on your organization. So we can create policies, we can create rules in order to run this, in order to give you the ability to run on your organization, to run any application, to move any files without any change. So once we finish this MERC learning, we will remove the end user admins, right? And we will give you the ability to keep working in a seamless way. The second feature we are calling it application control. Probably you're familiar with this terminology, which gives us the ability again to put 2 different applications. One is called whitelist, and the second one is called blacklist. On the whitelist, we will put all the application that you are familiar with them, that you like, that you approve, that you will run on your organization. On the blacklist, we put application that is not approved to run in each of the organization. But still, you can see that 99% of the application are trusted source. So it means that you have a famous vendor behind of them that will distribute this application, will send any changes or patches to you, but it's still trusted source application. But so all this application will be, as I mentioned before, on the whitelist. But in addition, there are some applications that you are familiar, but you don't want to allow them to run on your organization. For example, I can tell you as a private story from my side, when I joined to CyberArk 4 years ago, I work in one of the startups. So I travel all over the world and I use Skype. And when I arrived to CyberArk, I tried to use the Skype, but it was automatically blocked by the Endpoint Privilege Manager, by our system. So this is the difference between application on the whitelist and blacklist. But still we can see that we have 1% which called unknown application. This application, in the end of the day, could be, using on a very specific area in a very specific territory. I can promise you that you will find a lot of application and hold application in utilities, in manufacturing companies, healthcare, all of this application called unknown. So what exactly we should do? Should we put them on the whitelist? Should we put them on the blacklist? So for this kind of situation, CyberArk create one more layer, which we called gray list. So we will give to the developers, to the app desk guy, the ability to download this application, to use this application, but with some restriction. It means that you can use them in a specific way. You can go from this application to specific URL, specific folders on your desktop. So these are the restriction mode that we will have for this application. One more cool stuff that we're providing, it's called just in time. Just assume that now you have a third-party vendor that arrived to your organization, and he need some the ability to run an application or to run anything on your organization with elevated with admin rights. So what exactly will do? Should you give him admin rights? So for this kind of options, or let's assume that we have some dev guys that need a specific approve for a short period to run some commands with admin rights. So then we have the feature which called just in time. So we will provide period of specific time to these specific users, and once this period is ended, the access will automatically be removed. Important stuff to mention that we are supporting this agent or this technology on Windows servers, Windows desktop, Mac, and soon it will be supported on Linux and Linux servers. The second method, the second bug that we discussed on the EPM, we are calling it privilege defense, and this includes the following stuff. We are supporting the credential tab blocking, and I will talk about it in a minute. Ransomware protection, a huge protection for ransomware attacks, and privilege deception like honeypot, and we will talk about this in a minute. So about credential thefts, in the end of the day, we are using a lot of remote application like TeamViewer, LogMe, VPNs. So we are using our user password mechanism in order to use this application. We are using our, any web interface like Chrome, Mozilla, and Internet Explorer, Firefox, sorry, in order to serve to web pages. And so, for example, if you're connecting now to your account bank, so you definitely need to use your a user password. And with very simple application, you can get this user password. In addition, when we are using any application like SecureCRT, FileZilla for FTP to remove files between sites, again, we will use user password. So CyberArk providing here amazing mechanism to detect and protect your any attempt of stealing these credentials. About ransomware. So before talking about the ransomware, I would like to speak about CyberArk Lab research. So we have a huge team of more than 80 researchers that their main target, first of all, is to try to penetrate CyberArk solution, not only the EPM, but other solution. In addition, they are testing more than 2,000 ransomware samples every day in our lab. And up until now, I'm happy to say that we are providing 100% protection or success rate for ransomware attacks. Up until now, I don't know what will be happen tomorrow, but up until now, we are providing 100% success rate for ransomware attacks. I can tell you that they run up until today more than 2.5 million tests of ransomware samples, which is amazing number. And what I can tell you about it, for in the last SolarWinds attack that happened 2 months ago, that we saw that FireEye and many other huge organizations were attacked. So customers of CyberArk or any other that used the CyberArk EPM agent were quite, they were. Sorry, they were not attacked from the SolarWinds. And now we could see it, you can see that in 21 on December, Threat Intelligence, what they did, they released this document that said that when the attackers scan the endpoints that they try to penetrate, they try to breach, they scan, and when they saw these drivers, and one of them was the CyberArk EPM driver, they didn't try to penetrate to this desktop and breach this organization. So probably you're familiar with this attack. In the end of the day, the attackers stole credentials from the end user, and in the end of the day, they succeed to put a malware on one of the patches of the SolarWinds, and then it was distributed to all over the world. Last but not least, this is the honeypot. I like to say the privileged reception, but we are calling it honeypot place. So what exactly we are doing? We know that attackers, in average, will remain on the organization for around 155 days. So what we are trying to do, we are creating some honeypots to these attackers. So if we will detect a strange behavior, we are proactively shut down this account. And this is a very cool feature that we can talk about it later on, but I have limited time, so I just wanted to mention this cool feature. In terms of integration, so customers that already have CyberArk solution, so we are providing losing connection devices. So as you can see here, so customers that already have the core pass solution, and definitely on the COVID-19, so we put on the core pass solution, we're giving you the ability to rotate the password. But what's happened to customers that are working offline? So if they are using the CyberArk EPM, so we are automatically will change based on the EPM, we will change this password and update the core pass environment once they will be online. In terms of integration with SIEM solutions, so we have a full integration with Splunk, for example. And if you're talking about integration with more ticketing system, so ServiceNow, which is quite common all over Europe today, so we have a full integration with ServiceNow, amazing integration. And if you need more information about this integration, I will be more than happy to share videos with you, but later on, after this session. So some word about our environment. So basically, CyberArk EPM solution is based on a SaaS, which hosted on AWS. So we are not having today on-premise solution. This solution is running only on the cloud. So it's we are providing in terms of security. So providing SOC 2 Type 2 solution standard. Sorry, we are supporting ISO 27001, which is quite important. We are supporting the GDPR, which is important today in Europe. In addition, if you are talking about cost effective, so if in the past customer deploy the solution on premise, so today you don't need to maintain any more database server, you don't need to maintain any more IIS server for the EPM management system, and we will do it for you. And no need to worry about updates, software updates. Any vulnerabilities that we find in the market, we are providing quite quick a solution for that. So you won't feel any effect, and we will upgrade our environment quite quickly. In terms of scalability, it's quite easy to scale up and scale down. As you probably know, AWS is providing an amazing environment. So if you need to enlarge or decrease your resources, it's quite easy and quite fast to do online without any system interruptive. In terms of disaster recovery, so we are providing a full disaster recovery and high availability, definitely on different zones, availability zones. And in addition, it's quite important to say that today we have 8 environments worldwide in US, in Europe, in Asia, and in Asia Pacific. And soon we are going to add one more in the Middle East. So why CyberArk? So it's as you probably know, and I believe that Bartek already discussed about this, CyberArk has a lot of experience, not only on the PAM market, but in the identity security market. We have more than 6,300 customers globally. We have 50% of the Fortune 500 are CyberArk customers. We have 3 main headquarters, and most of the development is being done in Israel. So we have something around 700 employees that are located today in Israel. So we are spending, and you can see it on Gartner report, we are spending most of our revenues on R&D. And as I told you before, if we talked about Linux, so we are going to be the first company that providing supporting Linux servers for removing local admins, which is going to be very strong feature. And I believe that, again, it will be in Q4 in the end of the year. So ready to start. So basically, we are providing today an environment, a test environment for you that you can play for 30 days. It will be located on our AWS environment. And I can tell you a secret that if you will like the product and after 30 days, you would like to change your environment from test environment or POC environment to production environment, this is something that we are definitely supported, and we will be more than happy to do with you. So please use this link if you would like to hear more, or if you would like to test this solution. That's it from my side. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Roy. Коллеги, если у вас будут вопросы, пишите в чат, в блок вопросы и ответы. Мы обязательно ответим, так как мы сегодня нон-стоп и сдвинулись очень существенно во времени. Я предлагаю, пока вы пишете вопросы, мы продолжаем. Василий, и я рада представить еще одного спикера с кейсом. Василий представляет компанию Sweet IT. Sweet IT очень давно поставляет решение CyberArk, и Василий сегодня поделится кейсами. Василий?
Да, здравствуйте.
Да, слышно хорошо.
Я сейчас не могу поделиться экраном, потому что... О, все, сейчас есть.
Сейчас можно, да.
Да, все, спасибо. Так, коллеги, я думаю, мой экран уже видно.
Видно.
Да, в первую очередь хотелось бы поблагодарить коллеги Softprom за организацию такого чудесного мероприятия. Также хотелось бы поблагодарить вендора за чудесное решение, которое оценили не только мы как интегратор, но и наши заказчики. Сегодня об этом немножко поговорим. Как сказала Марина, я представляю компанию Sweet IT. Работаем мы в Украине. Я менеджер по продажам. Немножко расскажу про нашу компанию. Более 15 лет мы уже на рынке, более 100 корпоративных заказчиков у нас сегодня имеется, больше 400 интеграционных проектов. И есть возможность официально представлять первую линию поддержки таких решений, как CyberArk и Checkpoint. Ниже вы можете посмотреть, какие наши ключевые компетенции. Из последней информации доля рынка нашей компании по решению CyberArk – это 40%. Я в компании работаю больше 2 лет немножко, и нам вот мы смогли нарастить, да, уже 40% рынка. Надеюсь, что в этом году еще сможем увеличить свою долю. Немножко перейдем действительно к самим кейсам. Один из первых, о котором я хотел бы рассказать, это миграция крупного банка с конкурирующего решения на решение CyberArk. Очень долгий процесс. Это фактически заказчик, с которым я работал, как только пришел в компанию. То есть у нас интеграция, до проекта мы шли где-то 1,5 года. Почему они выбрали именно решение CyberArk? Потому что в предыдущего решения у них был ряд ограничений, и здесь как бы CyberArk действительно побеждает в том, что мы покупаем только количество пользователей, а все последующие компоненты у нас фактически безлимитны. И это очень удобно для самого заказчика, потому что это прогнозируемо, нет узких мест, количество людей в штате зачастую прописано, есть понимание, сколько такого штата, там увольняются, кто-то приходит, расширяется, и очень просто масштабироваться. Значит, также неограниченное количество целевых систем, как я сказал. Модульная архитектура, которая есть в CyberArk, действительно позволила заказчику сделать более надежные решения, используя также сторонние балансировщики. Решение, о котором сегодня говорили, это Alero. Действительно, это решение, которое было очень важно для их компании, потому что хотели отойти от VPN, и также их материнская компания, которая находится в другой стране, тоже использует решение CyberArk, и по их рекомендации это как бы было одним из ключевых решений. Также использование JIT доступа, Just-in-Time доступа. Сегодня о нем тоже немножко рассказывали. Так, и сейчас мы еще работаем с этим же заказчиком над решением по их двухфакторке. У нас в Украине есть законодательство, которое говорит, что для работы с банковскими системами, ну, в данном случае B2, с которой работает банк, нужна идентификация пользователей и второй фактор. И у них такая сейчас стоит задача. Для JET B2 мы будем использовать наше решение Idaptive с возможностью доступа через SSO. А для решения на Win32 сейчас смотрим несколько вариантов. У них есть Citrix Receiver. Возможно, к нему через Gateway сможем сделать тоже решение через SSO. Или будем использовать памовские решения. Там порядка 100-150 пользователей, которые ходят на Win32 решение. И это то, что дало нам там преимущество по сравнению с предыдущим решением, которое не могло реализовать даже 10% вот этого функционала. Также в рамках вот этого кейса хочу рассказать, что у нас есть еще ряд заказчиков, которые планируют переходить из конкурирующих решений и переходить из старых схем лицензирования. Так как CyberArk мы занимаемся практически из начала самого решения на рынке, есть заказчики, которые купили еще старые схемы лицензирования, где было лицензирование по конкурентным сессиям, по пользователям, по компонентам. И, как видите, сегодняшний вариант с подпиской намного расширяет функционал, дает возможность войти в решение, использовать решение с более меньшим бюджетом, вот, и расширяет функционал. Так, и еще немножко расскажу о втором кейсе. Мы одна единственная компания в Украине, которым удалось реализовать решение APM в серверной инфраструктуре. Этот заказчик начал использовать APM после всем известного вируса Пети, который зашифровал их данные. И они искали решение и решили остановиться действительно на одном из, на лучшем из вендоров и используют на сегодня решение CyberArk. То есть в сегменте защита от шифровальщиков для того, чтобы отключить учетные записи локальных администраторов и использовать только just-in-time доступ, для того, чтобы использовать только те приложения, которые разрешены, то есть у них есть все заблокировано, можно использовать только те приложения, которые они разрешили. И защита учетных данных также для них очень важна. И по сути сейчас они еще хотят развивать продукт, они используют старую схему лицензирования, сегодня планируют докупать еще лицензий EPM и расширить уже по новой схеме лицензирования, где у нас есть облачная консоль использования. Протестировали, им очень понравилось, и сейчас планируем закупку. Ну, по сути, вот из таких глобальных кейсов, о которых я хотел рассказать, вот это два. Возможно, если у кого-то какие-то вопросы, тоже могу ответить как интегратор.
Василий, огромное спасибо. Коллеги, если у вас есть вопросы, пожалуйста, пишите в блог вопросы и ответы, или можно в чат, мы передадим Василию. Василий здесь еще с нами. Повторюсь, так как мы очень ограничены со временем, немного сдвинулись, поэтому будем вопросы писать и параллельно отвечать, и еще продолжать сессию. Василий, спасибо тебе большое.
Я постарался ужать время, чтобы...
Супер, спасибо огромное.
Коллеги, всем спасибо. Отличное решение, отличный вендор. Это как раз, как говорит наш директор, это то решение, за которое не стыдно. Всем удачи в продажах.
Спасибо огромное. И следующая сессия по решению CyberArk Conjur. Это одно из решений, которое достаточно возможно, вы еще не слышали, возможно, слышали. И Эмине, наш спикер. Василий, можешь остановить презентацию? Да, супер. Эмине.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, hello.
We can
Let me
start.
show myself.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Just bear with me. I'll share my screen in a second.
Great. We see.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for having me today. So my name is Lateral Wmi. I am a pre-sales engineer in the EMEA team, looking after secrets manager for CyberArk. And today I'll be talking to you about how we basically secure credentials in the DevOps world. So I'm sure lots and lots of people are having those kind of situations today that are around using different tools to where they need credentials to access different resources. That could be databases, that could be I don't know, file systems, that could be simple users, application users within their pipelines, within their Kubernetes clusters, etc., etc. So, and each and every tool comes with its own ways of securing these credentials. So in CyberArk, we call this islands of security. And as you can see in this slide, we have, each and every one of those tools, and I'm sure we can talk about many others, are all managing their secrets in specific ways. And from a security perspective, that's a nightmare, simply because each and every solution in those that are, for instance, listed here, well, you have to look after them. You have to spend time securing them, and you have to audit them, and which becomes clearly very, very quickly something very extremely difficult for security teams, but also for developers, because developers will need to access those tools in different ways, in different shapes. And if you put the whole picture in an IT solution, that opens a lot of maybe tiny holes here and there. And the following example is going to show that, yeah, now people are, because everything is getting automated, and we're talking about identity of applications and identity that is cross IT infrastructure. It opens a lot of holes. And yeah, attackers now don't specifically just target human credentials, they also target application credentials, because those applications can get sometimes access to very sensitive data very quickly. So if somebody manages to get access, in this example, Tesla got hacked just because, yeah, their Kubernetes the Kubernetes platform was not properly secured, right? So the keys were there, the attacker found them, and he started mining Bitcoin, right? And that was on I believe on AWS. So that simple credential allowed people or attackers to get access to specific resources. In this case, it was their AWS account, and they didn't do well, it cost obviously Tesla because they had to spend a lot of money later on, but they just did cryptocurrency mining. But imagine if this credential gave you access to extremely sensitive data, like user data, or I don't know, social security numbers, and those kind of the serious type of breaches. I mean, you can see that very quickly just because of one password that was not properly secured, and that actually ended up in, I don't know, for instance, in a Git repo, well, allowed people to get access to very sensitive data, and they didn't even have to look very hard for it. And yeah, the problem is things like that. You go on GitHub and you search, for instance, for AWS API keys, and you'll see them because it's on GitHub. So that simplifies a lot of things for the hackers, right? So from our perspective, yeah, here it highlights the fact that it has been, as you can see here, it's been deleted, right? It's in red, so this has been deleted. But in any case, it's already there in the Git repo, so we still have the history of it. Even if you try hard, sometimes it's going to be really complicated to get rid of those credentials. So this is the actual problem. We embed secrets within code in this case, and it highlights one thing that is extremely important also. The sensitive credentials are usually now managed by developers, which is a massive problem when you increase the number of tools, because it's quite easy to find a place where a developer, just because he needed to go quickly, he managed to put that in his code or in somewhere that is not very protected, and forgets about it, and then pushes it to something that is public, or something that is quite easily accessible. And and that gives access to a very sensitive set of assets, which is, in this case, for instance, an AWS account. So, and overall, the idea is to prevent the secret theft, because if the attackers usually go to dump whatever they can find quickly, right, to get access then to either your cloud or your on-prem network, right? And this now, because of all of those tools, and you can see that they can target pipelines, they can target tons of applications, maybe source code repositories, that will quickly give them access to everything they need, which is quite frightening, right? Like in few clicks, with simple searches across different type of applications that attackers definitely automate. Remember that, because it's applications, so it's predictable. It's sometimes even more predictable, especially that if we're talking about open source or things that are accessible, it's even more predictable on where passwords will end up, right? So in matter of seconds, attackers could get access to your entire estate. So and this will target system processes, registry locations, etc., and all the non-default configurations, right? Because we know, for instance, that I don't know, a Kubernetes has this specific certificate that gives you access to the entire cluster. You just need to know how to get access to it, and done, because that's the default configuration. But once somebody gets access to the Kubernetes cluster, well, he can do a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. Because it's automation and because it's applications that we're talking about, not specifically human access, I mean, the scale is quite different. So in CyberArk, we came up with this vision that it's not specifically limited to human access. Initially, that was the case. And then we started extending. But now, for us, it's the entire enterprise-wide privilege policy that needs to be managed centrally, right? So you plug all of that together, whether that's human access or whether it's IaaS, PaaS, or DevOps tools, or on-prem or on the cloud, whatever that is. We believe that we can all consolidate that in one single vault, centralized vault that will help us control and audit and make sure that everything is consistently controlled, and offer all the possibility to its users to fine-grain control what's going on in their estate. Okay, so for us in the DevOps world, and this is what I look after in CyberArk, we look after three major use cases. So the first one is the CI/CD, because developers basically need to now push code. This goes quite quickly. They deliver a kind of service. So CI/CD is quite a very good example of credentials being used in there, and that are not usually very secure. The second one is microservices, because of Kubernetes, because of all of the new microservices type of architecture that everybody's now using, with containers, with all the new hype around that. That also uses a lot of credentials, having services talking to each other, having apps talking to each other, having microservices then talking to each other, eventually to databases, and then increasingly having access to more and more sensitive data. And finally, the infrastructure itself. Today, when we start talking about infrastructure as code, when we talk about Ansible, when we talk about Chef and Puppet and Terraform, all of those tools are now that they are basically every IT in industry has a use of those, because we need to deploy infrastructure quickly. We need to be consistent in how we deploy that. But sometimes we forget that it requires secrets. And those secrets, if they get leaked, well, they also give access to a tremendous amount of risk of either the infrastructure or eventually other things amongst them, databases and user data, etc. Okay, so this is how we focus on that. So everything comes of course from the human access, right? And then it moves down the chain to cover the tools and automation. So this is intermediary. And then finally, the access is to the pre-prod and prod. So basically, we're going to allow a control, fine-grained control over every single step of the way. And that's basically the idea. And for that, we came up with the solution that is called Secrets Manager. So Secrets Manager, formerly known as DAP or AAM, it is basically the way that we will use to secure all of those aspects. And that could be, and basically that is all centralized around the Enterprise Vault from CyberArk. Okay, so the Enterprise Vault from CyberArk will allow us to bring, of course, what we already have, which is the key rotation, the auditing, etc., all of those good stuff that are coming from the CyberArk Vault itself, plus all of the goodness of the dynamic, extremely flexible, ephemeral sometimes, etc., that is much more closer to what application require today and what the DevOps world require today. And from that point on, we can talk to containerized apps, we can talk to Ansible or Chef or Puppet or you name it, the infrastructure as code, and then we can also talk to all application legacy stuff, that because they pretty much work the same way, and we're going to be also able to talk to the Jenkins and the likes for the CI/CD pipelines. So, and this is just basically an example to show how we can plug that from a centralized point, which is around the main data center, and then allow it to scale. Because obviously, when we start talking about all of those DevOps things, it's all about scale. We are in need of as users, as end users, of companies and customers, to be able to scale that, because it's not. One vault is not specific, or enterprise vault is not going to be specifically ready to handle every single request coming from millions of apps. But with this modular and highly available and highly scalable solution around Conjur, which is the actual product that is the underlying brick that will allow all of that, it is going to allow customers to use that across their entire estate. So the common integration, the common integrations that we have obviously can be listed in here. So yeah, from the CI/CD perspective, from the microservices perspective, and eventually from the cloud and yeah, and the cloud providers. So as you can see, it's like we have pretty much the major ones there. So, and if you don't, then we're always happy to discuss with you according to your requirements. But yeah, we do have a team that is working extremely hard to cover as many use cases as we can, to bring that security, that extra security layer to those other technologies and actors of the market. And on the DevOps side, there is something that I would like to highlight on how we actually deliver those secrets. So yeah, we do have the vault, we do have the Conjur infrastructure running, which is going to deliver those secrets. But then how we consume secrets is slightly different from the application perspective. And we have different levels. So on the Kubernetes from the Kubernetes perspective, we have ways to get people up and running in no time, meaning that if they're already using, for instance, the Kubernetes secrets, we can replace that so that passwords are not in clear anymore and manifests, etc. So we're going to replace them with something that we call the push to Kubernetes secrets. There is another way, which is called summon, that will, as you can see, each and every one of those solutions offer a different level of security, but also a different level of how we deliver that to the consumer. So, for instance, the easy way when, for instance, we're talking about Kubernetes is this one, as I spoke about a few seconds ago. So that is going to rely on Kubernetes. The second one is what we call summon. It's going to fetch and put secrets into environment variables. So that could be quite extensive in terms of integrations, as you can imagine, because pretty much all applications are usually able to consume data from environment variables. And then we offer, obviously, APIs, so everybody can pretty much do what they need from their applications as long as they are able to code and modify their code. And finally, the secretless broker, which is, I believe, the most interesting piece of technology that have been invented in this product, which is a broker that will sit in between your apps and the actual secret, well, backed up, like let's say a database. So your app wouldn't have to authenticate to the database directly. We will control this this proxy that will sit in between. This proxy will do the authentication for you. It will be having a certain level of assurance on how we protect it with mutual authentication, with TLS, etc. So it has a certain level of security, and your developers wouldn't have to care about passwords or usernames, etc., because this will do it for you. Okay, and yeah, I just wanted again, before closing this presentation, to go back again to this slide, because I believe this is the idea CyberArk is really all about today. It's offering a centralized and a centralized view on how to secure your credentials, whether these are for humans or for apps. And the more we dig, the more we will understand that credentials are everywhere, and every single credential that we have in our estate is potentially given access at some point in time to some sensitive data that it shouldn't. So apps are the least looked at, unfortunately, in the security world today. And I believe that this is the most critical one, because they are way easier to get access to, and they will give access to much more sensitive data that any other human could have. Thank you very much. And that ends up my presentation. I don't know if there are any questions, or I should hand over back to Marina.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. Коллеги, пожалуйста, если есть вопросы, пишите в блок вопросы-ответы. Michal, can you... we see you, but it's not the best. Michal?
Michal, you're...
Can you rotate your image?
I'm rotated. Let's see. Let me just check it. I haven't changed anything. All right, you're right.
Yeah, but it's great.
Yeah, you're right. Now it should be fine. I'll just turn also this mirroring process, because I guess that you may see. That should be good.
It's now good. Yeah. Коллеги, сейчас я рада представить Михала. У нас сессия по blueprint решению. Michal, we can start.
Perfect. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, everybody, actually, for joining and for being for so long with us. Before we get to the blueprint, I will start sharing first my screen to be sure that everything is working. And then I have some additional comments that I want to share with you. Just very nice, we can confirm that you can see the screen.
Yeah, it's great.
Perfect, perfect. So before we get to the blueprint itself, my name is Multi-Factor, original sales manager, covering business in a number of countries here in this part of the world. So today we talked to you in a number of presentations about really different areas of identity security. We know that we touched everything not that deeply as we could, or as you probably in many cases would like to hear, but we didn't have time, obviously, for that. But what we wanted to do today is to show you that securing identities is a complex thing. And the reason for that is because is that we see in many places, let's say across the region, that customers, some of the customers very often think about securing accesses only as of securing privileged accesses. But it's not only PAM. Let's say PAM was what was enough like a few years ago. Now this thing is much broader, as you've seen today. So first thing, if you would like to know something more about one of these areas that we touched today, let us know. Let Softprom know. We can of course organize some more deep dive sessions with you. But going to my presentation, which actually summarized everything that we talked to you about today. As I said, you've seen that there are many different flavors of identity security. And the truth is that identity security programs are not easy and short programs. And because it's so complex, it really touches every identity, every user, human, non-human, every system in your environment. And we've seen it through across the region, across the world, in many cases that customers were just struggling to manage it, to find a way how to approach this programs. On the other hand, we saw that they were just implementing it in a very small part of the environment, and there were big holes in other areas. And the other thing that we saw, I just want to quickly, that what they were struggling with, and I do believe that you have exactly the same problem, is that they were trying to find a balance between implementing more security, which obviously is needed these days, and keeping users happy. Because at the end, the more security you implement in the wrong way, users will be less and less happy, will be trying to use for the bypass and so on. So having these two things in mind, that it's complex, companies don't have the experience and knowledge how to approach. It's a quite new area, I mean, identity security, and also this balance between security and user experience. We created something called Blueprint. Blueprint is a methodology that we build basing on our really 20+ years of being on the market, thousands of customers implemented, and what is important, a lot of attacks that we analyzed, which actually included stolen identity. And we created a methodology which helps our customers to plan the approach, to plan the strategy for securing their identities in their environment, the long-term strategy. Actually, it's based on like two things. First of all, it's based on these risks. That's the three main risk areas that many of the speakers today touched, which is credential theft, because we want to implement identity security to protect against credential theft. Then lateral and vertical movement, again, one of the main principles of implementing identity security is to stop attackers from moving laterally, vertically in your environment. And third principle is to limit the escalation of the privileges that your users have, but also that may be used by the attackers. So in general, it's all about implementing zero trust and least privilege across your organization. The second thing that we built our blueprint on is this graph that I'll show in a minute. So because when we define risks, we were able to define what to protect, which areas to protect. But with this thing, with this graph and this principle, we defined how to protect. I mean, in what order, where to start, and how to proceed with the project. So in general, we want to start every identity security project with this high impact, low effort, which we can call quick wins activities, which means at the very, very beginning of every identity security project, we want to find those accounts that can be onboarded and secured in an easy and quick way, but which will remove the risk level dramatically. And only after then, we want to follow with the program to touch these things that require more time to be implemented. So based on this principles that I just showed you, we created this 5 stages blueprint program, blueprint methodology, which defines the program. As I said, stage 1 is like quick thing. We are sitting in like in 1 quarter, we secure all this, your crown jewels, let's call it like that, quick wins. And then we go to the program. This program touches actually every area, every part of the identity security thing. And what we want to propose to you and what we do for our customers, and we've done it also in Ukraine in already many cases. Alex, you may know better than me how many cases, but we created a lot of work roadmaps already for the customers also in Ukraine, and that's what we want to propose to you. If you are interested, we will be able to work together with you to help, based on our blueprint methodology and with the knowledge on your environment, because we will need some more information about your environment to create customized identity security program roadmap. This is just an example of how it may look. Obviously, it's not just one slide. We will be able to deliver many additional documents, KPIs and so on that comes with the methodology. But this thing that you have now on a screen, which may look easy and obvious, it's something that customers really value, because it helps, as you see, we have this timeline in the middle. It helps to put on this timeline all these important stages. It can put the order, how the identity security program may look like in your IT environment in your company. As you can see, we can help you to plan it for the next 3-4 years. And what is important? Of course, we are identity security vendor. We have a lot of products, as you've seen today, but we don't focus building that on a product. This is all about what to protect, how to protect, what processes should be implemented, in what order, and what is important, actually, this is a service that we can deliver to you a free of charge. There is no commitment. Obviously, we would be happy if you decide to implement this strategy with us, with our products, and with what we can offer to you. But on the other hand, if you decide at some point that, hey, it's nice strategy, nice program, but you will not use it or you will implement it in any other way, so that's also okay. We won't be happy with that, obviously, but as I said, there is no commit here. So I know that we are a little bit past the schedule, so I don't want to extend my presentation too much, but this is actually the key message that I wanted in this summary part to share with you. First, if you are interested in any of these areas that we showed throughout the day, to learn more, to see more deep dive demo, to see how it may work in your environment, please let us know. Please let Softprom know if you haven't done it yet already in this post that Marina was sharing. And the second thing is blueprint. If you are interested in us building this blueprint, this roadmap, this strategy for your identity security, also let us know. We'll be happy to work with you on that. As I said, it's a free of charge service. Just to say you that it's worth to spend this time with us, is that in many cases, really customers were just copy pasting what we prepared for them to their IT security strategy plan for the coming years. So that's all about a blueprint. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Maybe one more thing, just let us know, and then we'll schedule a dedicated session for you. One thing before I will say thank you, that I wanted to mention is that Bartek talked today about this secure web session. We called it Swiss. I'm not sure if this is how we should call it, but SWS, if you are interested in that, and there were some questions about that, we are organizing on 23rd of June, which is like next week, a dedicated deep dive session that will be only about this secure web session product, this new thing that we are launching in September. So I think that we will be able, Marina, to add the link to that session also to the thank you email at the end, because I think that there were some interest here throughout the attendees, and also when we were talking with the other customers, also in Ukraine, there was interest in this SWS, so we'll be happy to see you there as well. So that's all from my side. I know, Marina, that you wanted to have some time at the end for additional Q&A, so now I leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Michal. Коллеги, пожалуйста, если у вас есть вопросы, вы пишите в блок «Вопросы и ответы». Спасибо огромное коллегам из CyberArk. Thank you, colleagues from CyberArk. И как я обещала, мы зачитаем вопросы и ответы, те, которые вы не слышали, и у нас были ответы на них. Возможно, это пригодится. Итак, один из вопросов был к Барташу, доступно ли Idaptive для приложений не только интернета, но и on-premise. Да, доступно, работает как для on-premise, так и для веб-приложений. Один из вопросов, который мы не успели зачитать, но дали ответ. Так, от Ирины. Говорили, что создаете поведенческий портрет пользователя. Проводилось ли тестирование? Насколько защищает такой метод в вашей системе от методов социальной инженерии при взломе? Ответ. Многие заказчики настраивают форсированный сброс паролей при выявлении аномалий. При проверке случались ложные срабатывания по социальной инженерии за счет изоляции сессии, секреты не передаются на рабочую станцию пользователя, а передаются на терминальный сервер. CyberArk изначально исходит из предположения, что пользовательская среда может содержать вредоносное ПО. Один из вопросов был также, сколько времени нужно для разворачивания продукта на 400 ресурсов. Ответ. Система не требует изменений конфигурации или установки агентов ни на рабочих местах пользователей, ни на целевых серверах. Поэтому такой прямой зависимости нет. Время внедрения больше зависит от размера и сложности IT-инфраструктуры в целом. И еще, да, добрый день, как происходит поддержка HTTPS. На терминальном сервере PSM запускается браузер, открывается запрашиваемая URL. Особенности с HTTPS могут быть в случае самоподписных сертификатов. Тогда их предварительно можно добавить в доверенные корневые CA. Возможно, какую-то информацию я некорректно читаю, приношу сразу извинения. Еще один вопрос от Дмитрия. При доступе сторонних подрядчиков через CyberArk, как реализована передача файлов или больших объемов данных? Помню, в сессиях CyberArk буфер обмена зачастую отключен. Ответ. В силу особенностей архитектуры решения сессия устанавливается не напрямую, а через терминальный сервер. По умолчанию буфер обмена не пробрасывается, но за счет активации дополнительных опций можно пробросить. На уровне коннектора позволяет пробросить буфер обмена. Также можно пробросить принтеры, звук, промапить диски для передачи файлов, что позволяет Remote App, то и позволит CyberArk. Так, и еще один вопрос. Возможно ли копировать файлы и данные в сессии браузера? Ответ, да, это возможно, HTML5, специфический полис, трансфер, not be allowed, не будет загружаться. Коллеги, спасибо вам огромное за количество вопросов. Достаточно много сегодня было вопросов. Также у нас есть записи. Приношу извинения, запись идет исключительно на оригинальном языке, но мы открыты к демонстрациям. Если у вас есть потребность, мы готовы индивидуально связаться с вами и провести с учетом ваших сценариев демонстрацию с помощью русскоязычного ресурса. И еще раз вам спасибо за время. И извините за нон-стоп. У нас сегодня без кофе-пауз получилось. Это означает, что очень было интересно. Алексей?
Да, к сожалению, я не смог с вами все время присутствовать. У меня какие-то аппаратные проблемы с ноутбуком. 4 Zoom перезапускался, перегружался. Вот немножко отключение камеры помогло. Очень приятно видеть так много людей. Надеюсь, что вы сегодня не скучали, да, и мы готовы каждому индивидуально, подробно рассказать, в общем-то, о любом решении CyberArk, которое есть в нашем портфеле. Вот, будем рады всех слышать, со всеми общаться. Спасибо коллегам из CyberArk за то, что нас сегодня поддержали, Михалу, Барташу и всей вашей команде.